should be okay, I guess, right?
And most people are tuning into the video probably to maybe know a little bit about the basics of what Ashes of Creation has planned. It's a high fantasy, player-driven, dynamic MMO. So how has your original vision changed or evolved over the past 5 years?
That is a good question. I had a pretty clear vision set out from the beginning.
Actually, it's fine, but I'm on the phone, not headphones. Okay, I'll forgive you. I wish they turned off the music, like the background music, because it's getting mixed up a little bit, but okay, let's just keep watching and see how it all goes.
I drew a lot of inspiration from the MMOs that I've played, trying to hone in on, the aspects of systems design that I felt did good things, right? And tried to avoid, obviously, the things that I didn't like. At first, I didn't know whether or not my vision resonated with people. So, I could have just been kind of the odd man out here in what I thought other games did well. But that's why, part of the process of development was to be transparent, to be open about kind of our ideas, philosophies, the designs, everything, even from the paper phase before we got to really starting to implement these ideas. And I found that it did resonate pretty well with a large segment of MMO players. So
exactly, yeah, taking into account there is like it used to be around 150,000 people who bought Alpha 2 packs or higher, like Alpha 2, Alpha 1 and higher, and that's at least $250. And there is like 150,000 people, right? And if I recall correctly, they have like at this point, I'm not sure, but if I recall correctly, it's a bit more than 3 million users who subscribed to their website, which is, pretty decent. Yo, are my messages coming through? Seems like Twitch mobile sucks. Yes, I can see your message now. Welcome to the stream. It's your first time here, from what I see. Yeah, there you do. Welcome. Just like I said, we're gonna be watching some old Steven's interviews and see how it all, aligns with today's reality when it comes to Ashes of Creation development. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. And I found a couple of interviews that were not like really popular, and they were not watched by many people. So that's going to be interesting. At least I hope so, right? Okay.
Because of that fact, I haven't really deviated too much from the original design and intent behind a lot of this stuff. Another component of perhaps why I didn't deviate much or not much has changed in that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And which content on which platform exactly are you talking about, if you don't mind me asking?
Original design and vision.
Yeah, and the reason why he didn't switch from his original vision is because there's a shit ton of games that are just, a default copy-pasted MMO, a clone of... Oh, YouTube. Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, now, welcome to Twitch. So, yeah, what I was saying is there's plenty of other games, and what they do is kind of a little bit a different approach. So he mentioned it's a risky approach. So one of the game's core pillars is the concept of risk versus reward, and not only it applies to the game itself, but it also applies to their philosophy and vision as well, because doing what they are doing is risky. It's ambitious, it's risky. The risks are high, but the reward is there. If they succeed, this can be like theoretically, and I'm not saying that just as a fanboy or super hyped enthusiast. This is true. Like at this point, they have everything to become a very big and very successful MMO that can be and also don't worry about it. First of all, you did not get through going live hump. Still haven't our comment. I'll shut up and listen to your fanboy. Yeah. Yeah, I know, it doesn't matter. I've started doing a lot of things, and I know that no matter what exactly you start. First steps are always, complicated, but it's all right. It's normal. I would be more surprised if it was easy. Let's put it that way, because it would be just, too good to be true. And yeah, all you have to do is just not to give up and stay consistent. That's about it. And apart from that, you also need to, constantly double check and do the, troubleshooting, analyze your like stuff that goes wrong, that can be improved, etc., etc. So just basically, just make sure you're getting a few percent better every single day, and over time you're gonna be good. So yeah, that's the mindset that I adopted. Let's put it that way.
Is because I don't want to introduce scope creep. We already are a very ambitious MMORPG.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. This is the scale of the game, the number of systems, the world size. It's extremely ambitious. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my concerns because they promise so much. Like, theoretically, if they even deliver like half of it, it can still be a pretty decent game, and I'll be glad to play even like if the game has like 50% of all systems. But people don't like it doesn't really work like that with many other people. Why? Because they will immediately start calling him out like, hey, you promised this but you delivered this. It's it's a problem, you were not honest, you were lying and stuff like that. That could count at least as a miscommunication, or what's the right word for it? It's as a planning bias, because we always overestimate our ability to finish, certain tasks. And if you dive deeper in cognitive psychology, you'll find experiments proving that. But yeah, the ambitious inexperience of a new game director, exactly. That's one of the things as well. But just as we discussed it on one of the previous streams, on a previous one, because it's only the second one, and you can still aim, at the stars and hit the moon, and hitting the moon wouldn't be a bad thing. So even though people will be complaining, there is going to be still a decent percentage of people who will still play it, because even half of the game delivered may end up being pretty good, and everything else can be added over time, right? So I mean, we don't judge. What's the saying for that in English? So those who are victorious are not to be judged. If they end up delivering, a decent product, a game, then everyone will just shut up or just whine for a little bit and then shut up, because it's rooted deep in the nature of people, especially modern people, to complain and whine about literally anything and everything, right? So yeah.
And of course, as we move through, different design discussions and, the development process, new ideas come up, and the ideas are great, and they sound, something that would fit well and we'd want to incorporate into the game. But I had to make hard calls not to do that. And the reason why is because, there is an abundance of great ideas when it comes to MMOs, and wanting to prototype everything or wanting to, have the opportunity to introduce these additional features is a endless tunnel. It can be.
Great passion is what I'm looking for from a game dev like Intrepid. Oh, and for them not to run out of funds. Yeah, that's one of my concerns too. If I knew that they have no problem with funding, then I'll be like 90% calm probably, right? I wouldn't worry about it, because if they have the funds, they will deliver the game one way or another, sooner or later. So it's maybe like in 2 years, maybe in 3 years, in 4 years, doesn't matter, because I'm ready to wait, right? Because I don't want them to make the same mistake as New World did, which is delivering an unfinished game with lack of content. So they take the first box, the second is a question mark. Yeah, but even if they will at some point face any issues with funding, I'm pretty sure they will be able to deal with that, because there's always a way out, right? So what I was trying to say is, yes, we need, other games are produced by studios who follow, the same path. Like they do the market research, they understand their target audience, and they want to keep it as wide as possible, obviously. And they end up, doing what everyone else does, which is creating another clone of some, World of Warcraft or something like that. And I respect at least the courage and maybe a little bit naivety as well, but I think the industry needed like a dreamer like Steven to actually try to do something like this, because if Ashes fails and if it doesn't end up being successful, well, at least we tried, and we know that it's kind of, doesn't have a really high chance to succeed. Not impossible, obviously, but difficult, and more difficult than people expected it to be.
An endless tunnel. And I think that what we have from the original vision is very cohesive in and of itself, and creates a compelling, fun, player-driven, sand park environment from an MMORPG perspective, that we execute on that first. And then we go back and revisit these ideas that came up along the way as part of implementing potentially with future updates and expansions. So the vision stayed pretty true over these past years.
It's been 4 years since you successfully funded on Kickstarter. Since you began, you guys have concluded Alpha 1 testing, right? And Ashes of Creation Apocalypse, which was an offshoot of development, testing some of the combat and infrastructure for the MMORPG. So where do you stand in your development phase right now?
Sure. Right now, we just had a big announcement a few days ago. Actually,
yeah. So this video, it was like from 2 years ago. So it's like not accurately 2 years ago, but it's like between 2 and 3 years. So it can be like 2.5 years or something like that. So it was back in 2022, basically.
Actually, about our migration from UE4 to UE5. This came, after our Alpha 1 concluded in the middle of August of this year. We spent about a month and a half, our leads and some of our technical artists evaluating the benefit of migrating over to UE5 and what that would bring to the project overall.
I'm just wondering, I'm not really familiar with this stuff, but if any of you is familiar, can you enlighten me how difficult this process is, like transitioning their, I don't know, all game assets from UE4 to UE5, because I don't know that. And yeah, maybe he will explain that further, but I'm just wondering.
Where we are currently is post that migration of our custom code base into UE5, we are still on the road towards Alpha 2. And Alpha 2 is intended to be...
The game looked much better 3 years ago. No, that's a trailer, but... And this is it's just, once again, it's full HD quality. It's not even 4K, so... In terms of graphics, that's the least of my concerns,
A very comprehensive representation of all of our systems being present in the game, and a significant portion of the world and content available. That's a very big difference between Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. Alpha 1 was a very core, perspective of some of these game designs
No, I haven't, somehow I'm... I watched this video, I've seen this video, but I haven't seen this guy. This, looks like a golem or giant, I don't know. Icy giant, but kind of looks promising.
System or guilds and, our combat that we actually decided to reiterate upon. It was about 70 square kilometers of playable area, almost, actually, we originally had it at 100 square kilometers. I think it was roughly 70 that it turned out being. But the Alpha 2 is going to be probably about half of the world space available as part of the testing.
Wait, he said Alpha 2? Hang on.
About half turned out being. But the Alpha 2 as part...
Okay, yes, he said Alpha 2. Well, Alpha 2 ended up being 5% or so of the whole world map. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, because everything is subject to change. But yeah, that's what I was talking about. Planning bias. They practically seem to have pretty much started reworking the whole asset base. According to guildies that played A1, it's a full rework, which is kind of a bummer, but I don't mind. Yeah, that's fair. Like, in the long... obviously, you know, waiting for... I don't know how long that takes, maybe like a month, 2, 3, or whatever, but I guess it's still... it is still a good decision if you take a look at it from the long-term perspective. Like, and which guild are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
Part of the testing. I would say just over 220 square kilometers of world for players to explore, which is a pretty comprehensive portion of the game. So that's where we are. We've just finished our migration over to UE5. We are still on the road towards Alpha 2. We haven't announced a date yet on that, but there's a lot of work as part of that process.
We saw some features like, the better lighting effects with Lumen, and some amazing visuals of the newest biome that you unveiled. And aside...
Oh, Hand of Unity. I know Hand of Unity. I sent my application to them, and it got declined. So I moved to another one. Still hiring. I know, but I won't be... I won't be there. But we will... I'm gonna be in a U guild as well, so we might meet in Verra, you know?
From visual fidelity, are there other features that help sway your decision to migrate to UE5?
Yeah, absolutely. UE5 introduced a lot of development tools that make creating an MMORPG a bit easier in Unreal. One example we gave during the during our live stream, during the announcement, is the ability...
We might meet as well. Hell yeah.
For multiple...
I will, when I start playing, I will let everyone know, like on my Discord. By the way, if you are not on my Discord, feel free to join that. And I will announce the server where I'll be playing, so that if you want, you can join the same server and we could meet in-game.
Artists, designers, and engineers to be working within what previously was referred to as a sub-level, but now is broken down into cells. That availability alleviates a lot of bottlenecking that can occur when multiple developers need to access a particular sub-level in UE4. So from a streamlined perspective, the ability to then cooperatively work together with other developers in an area for an MMORPG specifically is a very, very good benefit.
I see.
Undoubtedly, you guys at Intrepid have run into probably more than a few hurdles with the pandemic. Yeah. And, back in May of this year...
I can imagine. When you played Lineage, what was the server population? It depended on the server. So the official servers, it's a very interesting thing, actually. The official servers had a population cap of like 5,000 to 6,000 people, right? But on private servers, I was there when the world record of all time, of all the history of Lineage, I was playing on the server that achieved that. And they had, at peak, I believe, somewhere around 18,000 people. Like 18,000 people. And the server was fine. So the thing is, it was like, the start obviously was a little bit rough, because all those, like, I don't know how many people was in start, like around 12,000? Private. Yeah, kind of. Correct. The launch was a bit rough, obviously, but it's common for any Lineage 2 server, because there's like, even though there's like 6 starting locations for different race, all people are in those locations. So, it's kind of hard to find even a mob that is not killed within like 5 seconds of his, after his respawn, right? But yeah, the admins of that server, they did some magic, and they did something that the actual developers couldn't do. So I was like, cool, and that was around the time when pandemic hit, so there was a lot of people who actually played it. So yeah, hang on, what are they? So if I see about 10k, it's pretty good. It's kind of decent. I would still like, the more the better, obviously, especially taking into account 1,200 square kilometers. But I think it's a pretty decent start,
lead developer, you know,
Oh yeah, I was talking about the pandemic. So you played Lineage 2, right? Oh yes, more than 12 years. Since basically C1, if that tells you anything, from the first Chronicles. And if they, yeah, I believe pandemic really hit them hard because they are based in San Diego in US, and it was a bit rough there, as far as I know, from what I heard.
Jeffrey Bard moved on to pursue his own passion in the VR space. So how has the team coped with like development with everything going on up to this point? And do you feel like you've actually made it back to like pre-pandemic productivity?
I believe we have made it back to pre-pandemic productivity. You know, it was interesting back in March of 2020 when originally we moved out of the office initially and at our working from home condition for a majority of the pandemic. It was a little bit difficult getting transitioned initially, but from a production standpoint, it actually was not as bad as.
Hell yeah, I noticed that too. I've seen his house from different angles and different interviews, and yeah, his house looks pretty damn good.
We thought it was going to be. That was really good. Our team really rose to the occasion with that. Very diligent in the ability to interface with one another via virtual connections. Like we utilize TeamSpeak and Slack and Discord and our Zoom conference calls, and that definitely was good from a supplemental perspective, but of course not the real deal in being present with one another in a studio. And that's it's interesting because different companies or.
I mean, hopefully he doesn't have to sell it to finish his game. I mean, even if he has to sell his house to finish the game and it ends up being successful, I'm pretty sure he'll be able to buy like 3 such houses.
Different projects at different phases of development, or perhaps even live ops, they handle these types of not being at location better or worse
Maybe,
than others.
I don't know.
For the stage of development that Ashes of Creation was in when the pandemic hit, it's obviously still a very collaborative, very creative process that, you want to be able to walk over to another person's station and chat with them at their screen and point to, aspects of either the imagery or art that they're creating or helping in the editor. There are elements of face-to-face communication that just can't be captured as well in a virtual setting. So that definitely presented some hurdles. The biggest hurdles that we actually experienced during the working from home was onboarding. We are still a growing studio. We're over 120 people right now working on the project.
Okay, so it was like 2.5 years ago, and now they have like 200 something. Yeah, remote onboarding can be challenging, let's put it that way. As someone who used to onboard people remotely, let's put it that way, I totally understand what he means.
It's interesting, during the March of 2020 until July of 2021, we grew by probably 30 people. And that was a difficult feat. Being able to have someone, join the team, a developer that is unfamiliar with our practices, with our, with our tool sets, with the project as a whole, and having to, onboard in a virtual capacity makes things a little bit more tricky. And that was definitely probably the biggest difficulty we had during the whole process. The bottom line is building an MMO is a huge task, and building Ashes of Creation is an even bigger task. So, my perspective on hiring and on, bringing talented developers onto the project is that we want to grow at a pace that makes sense. There were obviously areas of development that we had to iron out. After our testing of Apocalypse, we had to completely re-architect our back end. That was a huge discovery that Apocalypse granted us. And so we're very thankful for that opportunity to test there, and especially with the testers and community that we had participating.
I actually have never seen this set before. It's still from Alpha 1, but it looks pretty damn cool. Probably it's a little bit cold, for this guy. but still.
But there are pitfalls that occur during development, especially of an MMORPG of our size and using an engine like Unreal, that we had to come across and we had to solve and we had to to rethink kind of our approach. And for that reason, obviously, back in 2017, I wasn't going to start off the bat by hiring 200 people straight into the studio in a 6-month time frame. We wanted to grow gradually and grow at the pace of development as well. And it just so happened, unfortunately, that the time frame in which we were ready to really ramp up that hiring happened in coincidence with the time frame of the pandemic beginning. So that was unfortunate, but it is what it is.
I'm wondering how seriously did it slow them down? Like, what's going to be the difference if there was no pandemic? But that's a rhetoric question, I suppose.
So are there like any archetypes that kind of surprised you in Alpha 1, either by its like popularity or unexpected utility, or possibly just like something else the internal team had noticed about the way that these archetypes work?
I think as we began to kind of flesh...
If I recall correctly, there was 3 archetypes in Alpha 1, Tank, Mage, and Healer. So it's interesting.
Back in 2018. The different so we call the base 8 archetypes, and then when you combine them with your secondary archetype selection, we call those classes. So you have 64 classes, 8 base archetypes. I think from an archetype perspective, probably the most surprising that resonated with the community that we thought was perhaps an older or more old school type of class was the Bard class. And
wait, what? Was like... There was just a Bard showcase like maybe 6 months ago. Is there like... I don't get it. Okay.
And our approach to how we really wanted to architect this particular archetype was to provide more proximity and formation based support activity amongst either groups or raids, right? Also, it was really cool to see a significant segment of the population be interested in this support role, because oftentimes you hear about the DPS and damage dealers and the tanks and stuff like that, and the support roles typically get a little less love, even though they're
exactly like in Lineage 2, Bards were mostly there were 2 Bard classes in Lineage, and both of them were, especially in like PvP when it comes to grinding mobs, they were mostly like AFK characters that you launch on, second client or using a macro, right? But like in PvP, they had stuff to do, but it was usually, kind of like not a class that was really, really fun to play. And I played it once. It was like kind of okayish, but not as much fun as a DPS or a healer.
They're an integral component, and in a lot of other MMOs that I've played, they've done away with the support role. They've just incorporated what that role provided and split it up amongst the different classes.
Yep.
And I thought that was a shame, because there are a lot of people who enjoy the identity of that support in the classic traditional MMORPG parties. So making that a fun and competitive...
Yeah, meanwhile, even though the Bard classes in Lineage were not like super fun to play, there were people who played them for like many, many years. And it was like their main class. So yeah, I totally understand. What he said right now makes perfect sense, even though, it may be something new to people.
Gameplay with situationally relevant mobility and location and strategic use of proximity-based buffs and support skills is something that I think a lot of players are going to experience and feel that it's fresh, but also reminiscent of their older school support classes and archetypes that were available to them in some of their most beloved MMO experiences. Fresh, but also
they also copied the this part from Lineage 2, I think, because I haven't seen a single game with that system. Like the base core stats of the character, like 3 physical stats and 3 magical stats, let's put it that way, because Lineage has absolutely the same system. They just named one differently. So there was strength, dexterity, and constitution, and there was intelligence, mentality, and wisdom as well. Yeah.
Also reminiscent of their older school support classes and archetypes that were available to them in some of their most beloved MMO experiences.
In addition to all the classes, we also have races, each with their own base stats and racial augments. So certain races might have a predisposition to certain classes based on stats, but are there any potential?
Not anymore. If I recall correctly, they changed this because otherwise all the min-maxers will just, choose the, like, if dwarves are better tanks, every min-maxer who plays a tank will be a dwarf. And this is not the best approach to it, and I'm glad that they changed it.
Benefits to choosing races that may not initially seem like a good match for archetype or race or class?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, obviously, there are going to be situations that arise that might call for a more niche build type, right? And what that means is, you may have a broader approach with one particular race to archetype combination, and that might be kind of, generalist approach to every encounter, right?
Once again, it's no longer valid, just to everyone who's watching, it's no longer valid.
But then you're also going to have specific race to archetype combinations that are going to excel within more specific types of engagements.
Yeah, thank you for coming. See you. Good luck. Have fun. Stay safe. Use protection. Drink some water. Stay hydrated.
And the idea is this kind of rock, paper, scissors approach to balance, where it's acceptable that you might not stand toe-to-toe with a particular engagement that isn't best suited for you or your selections or your particular customized build. That's an okay thing because you're playing a massive game with massively multiplayer components, and you can attract the friends from a cooperative standpoint to engage with these different encounters and complete them successfully based on the different types of builds that players might construct. So in that sense, having the high customization options with relevant choices across a spectrum.
I'm actually wondering whether they still have this option to crouch. This XP pop-ups looks like from WoW. Yeah, they looked like that back then, but as far as I know, they will be pretty customizable. Let's put it that way. So I'm pretty sure you will be able to make them look like you want them to look like, similar to whichever game you came from.
Spectrum of encounters, I think, is going to make for an interesting and compelling composition of players and their archetype combinations with races.
You said it, so I'm gonna jump into it. Balance, the rock paper scissors balance, which it probably wasn't that high on the list in Alpha 1. So is this kind of something that we're going to see more of, like a balance and combat focus related to all of these variant classes in Alpha 2?
Yeah, Alpha 2 will definitely have a degree of balance that's incorporated. Our focus from a balance perspective, at least when it comes to encounters or PvP, is going to be based around the party, not around the single archetype or class. So that's something that's very important, as we're going about this this philosophy of class composition, of party composition, and how they're balanced with one another. And I think it lends well to the rock, paper, scissors approach.
Hey, love some people. Welcome to the stream. Nice to see you again. Welcome.
Alpha 2 absolutely will be incorporating some of those balance choices. It'll be something that we observe from a data perspective as we collect logs of, combat that players are enjoying in the game in Alpha 2. We'll probably come up with...
Yeah, but that most likely will not be during Phase 1, and most likely even not in Phase 2. So that he's probably talking, now that we know that, he's probably talking about Phase 3.
Hotfixes and updates to balance a little bit of that. We did that actually in Alpha 1 a little bit too. There were some There were some elements of, I can't remember which. There were some elements of the tank archetype that actually were just way overpowered, and
Probably he's talking about the tank wall, if I recall correctly.
Obviously the purview of that test isn't to test balance, but at the same time, it is a dial that we can easily adjust in some cases, right? Of course, it can have reverberating effects across different classes and whatnot, but that really, is something that we're going to, I think, focus on a little bit more than we did in Alpha 1 and Alpha 2.
Are there other features aside from combat that you're looking for feedback on in Alpha 2, or is it just going to be like a
everything
general, tell us everything that's broken?
Yeah, there's definitely feedback, apart from just combat that we're going to be...
Oh, there was no tank wall. Okay, yeah. We have an error warning. Hang on. One sec, boys. I'm gonna take a look at what's going on. He might be talking about the pull-in. Maybe, yeah, maybe. Like, I heard him in the Node War showcase. He mentioned that they were also fixing the tank wall because it was kind of like, too OP. Just 1 second. Yeah, error warning. Please stay covered. What the fuck is going on this time? Like, any info, please? You're fine? Yeah, I should be fine, yeah. Just wondering what's happening. Okay, I'll wait for an update. Let's keep watching.
Eliciting from our players for Alpha 2.
It's the second stream, and it's the second time we have error warning during the stream. Thank you very much,
Feedback on the communication of UI to players with the status of the world's development, being able to ascertain what nodes are progressing where, what it feels like to watch points of interest like dungeons and towers and castles kind of coming online, how that feels. Was it cumbersome to wait for those things to occur with the advancement of nodes? Or was it something that players feel they had, other activities to do while they, kept that goal of opening up this, tower to their exploration?
With the pull, you can cast it, then mount and run around until you dismount. The person would get TP to the tank. I see. Fair enough.
What is the variance and visual appeal to the different nodes? We have a pretty complex way that we're showcasing nodes and their advancement that makes them stand out and look different from every single node that's in the world. We want to obviously...
Okay, there's a pair of Su-57s with other jets covering them near the sea. And there's a risk of X-69 missiles launches. Okay. You do you, I think, fuckers.
Obviously, tune that as well as possible so that each node is visually compelling and different from one another. The layouts, the ability for communities to come together and work towards constructing certain service buildings and accomplishing certain server activities that change the way the story is told. These are all elements that we want to elicit feedback from our community. It's the reason why we have an open and transparent development process, is because all along the way there are going to be checkpoints where player activity and feedback is important, and it will inform our decisions as we move out of Alpha 2 and towards Beta.
Yeah, so that's basically what I was talking about in the previous stream. So even there will be people who will play Alpha 2 and who won't, report bugs. They'll just be there to play the game, right? Even though it's unfinished. But even them just existing in the world and doing some stuff, participating in different activities will provide them with, data, statistics that they can later on analyze and see what is right, what is wrong, and what needs to be adjusted or changed.
beta. And, obviously we're not going to collect all of that information at one given time for an Alpha 2 debut. There's going to be multiple testing sessions because Alpha 2 intends to be persistent across until the betas and eventually launch, that we're going to have different focuses, right? We may have players be focusing on node creation, on node development, and then we'll have them focusing on encounters and dungeons and points of interest, and then we'll have them focus on, the classes and the different combinations of classes and how they interact with one another from a PvP perspective.
Whoever just joined, first of all, welcome to the stream. I appreciate you guys coming. We're watching old Steven's interviews that were not seen by many people, and we're kind of comparing what he said back then and how it all, like, what's the current situation now, let's put it that way, just to see what, what actually ended up being true and what changed.
Castle sieges or in the node wars, or there's a lot of things. It's such a big question, I'm so sorry. There's a lot. There's a lot of things that player feedback is instrumental to our path forward as we iterate upon our designs. I mean, just coming out of Alpha 1, we have had literally 2 months of very intense design discussions with my designers about what the player feedback was, sentiment was, data reflected, and then how we can.
You start your journey taking quests and such, going through different nodes as the quest lines send you. What happens if some want to establish there and more players coming from the back wanting to finish the quests in that zone? Wouldn't that help? That node? How do you pick where to stop your journey? To level a specific node and grow there only, or do you just go to the end of the map and pick up the best node and start there with your friends? I'm not sure that there is going to be like a huge difference when it comes to nodes. The only difference that I can think of is like how close they are to the sea, right? Or to some like, dungeon locations or certain areas with specific resources, but it's very hard to know and hard to predict, like prior to Alpha 2 and maybe after the Alpha 2 even, right? So basically, I don't know, like whichever place, like whichever node in its zone of influence gets more players' activity, as a result they get more XP, and as a result that particular node gets developed and progress to the next stages. It's really hard to answer like with more details now, because there are many things and variables that we still don't know about, but we will learn at least some of them during the upcoming Alpha 2.
Incorporate.
That doesn't really make sense. Can you please specify what exactly doesn't make sense to you?
That as part of some design changes to the core systems. So I foresee, and this is something we always tell people who are interested in following our development, that we have our core designs, we have our core vision, but within there is subtleties and intricacies that are likely to change as a result of engaging with the player base and what their response is. So that's a very important element. 100% feedback is what informs our path forward.
Nodes play a really big part in Ashes of Creation. I mean, not only do they have a lot to do with some of the more unique aspects of the game, such as government, diplomacy, player housing, but a big part of the endgame loop revolves around node sieges and the potential to make changes to the world through these node changes. We could probably spend hours just talking about nodes alone.
I've spent many hours talking about nodes internally, yes.
But for someone who is watching this and they may not have followed Ashes of Creation up to this point, and they hear the word nodes, can you maybe describe how you see players interacting with nodes for both the leveling game and during endgame?
Sure. Yeah, nodes are in a way, I mean, nodes are a lot of things, but from a
the way I pick a node and how other players can influence that node as they just want to go through the quest line is thousands of players can go through that node to do their quest, basically helping that node. I mean, all nodes will have their own, if I understand that correctly, and I think I do, all nodes will have their own quest lines, their own zone of influence and maybe, different resources when it comes to the difference between one node to another. So I don't really think an issue here. Like, I don't really see an issue here. And I don't really understand what is that exactly that you worry about. Vladus, it's my dude Flanker. How's it going? Hello. Hey, Vladus. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome. I'm chilling. We're watching old Steven's videos, like interviews, and like seeing what changed since then. Other than that, I'm fine. There is air raid warning, but that's kind of like, I kind of get used to it. So where do you stop as you can progress all your life? In the first node you find, you pick one to play in. I mean, yeah, most likely, the nodes near starting areas will be very popular and developed because it's just, players will most likely play around that area, I would say, instead of going somewhere, across the map and settling down there. But other than that, okay, nice, you pick one. It's a bit weird as the whole game premise is on resources. Exactly, so that's the reason that, like, that's a motivation for people to explore different nodes. And can I ask you questions regarding starting zones? Yeah, sure. Like, feel free to ask anything. Yeah, so yeah, I was saying that that's the reason, like, different resources, different dungeons and quests are the motivation for a player to sometimes move from his main node to explore other nodes and maybe find better opportunities and possibilities somewhere else that were not that he didn't have access to in his primary node. Gangbox, what? It's crazy in this game there will be 64 classes. Yeah, that's a pretty decent one. Well, technically it's gonna be like subclasses, so it's not like totally unique classes, but it's still a pretty decent number. Do you think starting zones? You're lucky you got that age. Only one Vlad per stream. Yeah, we have a quota here. Do you think starting zones should be safe spaces to give people a chance to play Ashes without PvP? I heard Narc talking about that, and he shared some concerns about the situation that, like, hey, what if it's a starting zone and there's gonna be just people who, create level 1 characters and kill just newbies? Well, first of all, like, if it comes to me personally, like, I don't care. I'll just respawn and go elsewhere. Secondly, obviously if it becomes a serious issue, right, it can be easily fixed. Either it's going to be a safe zone or there will be guards that will kill those PK characters, right? So I don't really see that as a huge issue or an issue that can't be easily resolved. And even if it exists in the current state, without without a safe zone and without any guards, and you can actually do that, like, just create an alt character and kill people. But what do you prefer? Yeah, I'll answer that in a sec. I mean, first of all, intentional griefing will be a customer support issue. You can report that, and people will, face the consequences of such behavior. And secondly, yeah, obviously, like, when it comes to Alpha 2, we can expect all kinds of fuckery there. That's true. There's going to be much more PvP and much more PK and much more griefing potentially compared to the actual launch, if we get to see that one day, right? Because people have time to waste. They don't care about the consequences. They don't care about the character, especially taking into account the potential wipes, right? So I'm not the best person to ask that because I'm used to that and I don't care what happens. So, like, I got killed, I got PK'd in Lineage, and I haven't dropped a single tear about that. I'm like, well, okay, that's unfortunate. Let's keep moving, right? Because, once again, I'm not a big fan of whining and complaining. I don't care how difficult the game is. Once again, the only thing that matters is who plays it better, who adapts better, who finds better solutions who are bounty hunters will be a popular profession, hopefully. That's entirely possible. Yeah. And yeah, hang on. There was a question that I missed. What would you prefer? I mean, once again, I'm probably not the best person to ask this question because I absolutely don't care how, like, about the way it will all be. Because, like, but if you take a look at the perspective of the average player, like, average modern MMO player, then obviously there should be, like, either a safe zone or guards. Because, like, I'm not trying to be, harsh or toxic on people, but the average modern MMO player, after playing all the games that are modern, like what comes to my mind is a fucking chihuahua that literally has a heart attack if you shut the door loudly, So that's my vision of that. Once again, you may like disagree with that, but people are so anxious about everything. They worry about everything. They can't take any risk, and they can't face a defeat or accept a defeat because that's all like, oh my god, I'm gonna call my therapist and book a session. Like, come on, it's just a video game. There's nothing to worry about. Like, yeah. What bounty hunters? Bounty hunters are basically, it's like a progression path, and it's like people hunting down PKs. Yeah, so basically bounty hunters, players can become bounty hunters if they are citizens of stage 4 military node, right? And they can use their pathfinding ability to track the PK players on their map. And the more they progress within that specific activity, the more accurate their maps become. I think the starting zones need to be kind of a training wheel for new players, especially the theme park MMO players. I don't know, I want people to see if they like the game first without having to die to people. Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. Once again, like, I don't mind starting zones to be safe zones. I don't mind having guards there. For like an average player, it's going to be definitely better, I think. Also seen in the forum that people want to take them 3-6 months to reach max level in a dynamic world with node wars and conquest for its resort. What happens if someone new starts their game 6 months later? It's not like, wow, our past zones are obsolete. What are they going to do? Milk cows is a way to grow their adventure level because everything else is contested and all resources in world farmed. And it won't work like that. So basically, I am the person who made one thread about this like 6 months ago. I'm the person who made another thread about this like a month ago or so, right? And it's not going to be like, obviously, if you start 6 months later and other people have 6 months of advantage, basically, it's natural that you will be kind of at disadvantage, right? It's not a big deal. Why? Because first of all, 6 months later, you will still have plenty of locations and different nodes to go. And you won't have to wait to unlock the content because there will be low level content. Obviously, not the whole world will only have like level 50 mobs, so you'll be able to achieve and progress much faster. Secondly, after 6 months, people will have plenty of there will be plenty of guides on YouTube how to level as fast as possible. All the tips and tricks and shortcuts that you can possibly think of. And yeah, it's not going to be an issue. And once again, having fun in Ashes, like based on its design and vision, is not in the direct correlation to the level. So it's not a game where you have to be level 50 to unlock, to actually have fun. You can play the game even without that and still have fun, right? Let's say you have a group of people killing you on spawn when you respawn, you get killed again. Is that fun? And a game master needs to step in. It's not fun, but you can just, like, if there is, like, I don't know about you, but I'll explain what I would do. If there is, like, 8 people, like a group, who camps me on the spot, it means that I am one person and 8 other people are wasting their time on me alone. So, first of all, I will either try to waste their time, if that has like any benefit, right? Or if they're members of a rival guild, for example. Secondly, I can just log off and they will not know, maybe come with an alt character and just see what's going on there. And they will not know when I will be back, and I'll be back like 3 minutes after they leave, right? And I don't know if there's going to be an opportunity to respawn at some other place. Maybe there will be ways to counter that, but other than that, I don't care. Like, personally, I don't care. Like, there's always a way out, there's always a solution, and, you know, adapt, like, improvise, adapt, overcome. I think people starting 6 months later at launch might have a better leveling experience than the people who started at launch. Absolutely, it's going to be much faster. Depends on the people on that server. I mean, I think any server 6 months later after the start will be more, you know, developed, no matter what people do. So a bit discouraging to start a new character knowing it will take months. That's a double-edged sword, and I'll explain why. Because a lot of systems in Ashes are tied to player interdependency, right? If leveling is slow and it's easy to make an alt character, and once again, every next character that you level up, you will do that much faster than you did with the previous one. Why? Because you have experience, you already know what to do, you will die less often because you have experience, and as a result, you will have less death penalties, right? And if that's your second or third character, you will easily buy him the best in slot gear for, like, you know, those low and mid levels, because it's usually much cheaper. And that, as a result, will lead to people having more alt characters. And those alt characters can be used for various purposes, including artisan skills. Which means if, like, an average player has like 2-3 artisans, alt characters with different artisan skills, it means that that interdependency will slowly die over time. We shall see. Sorry, I don't know how to read that correctly. Thank you so much for follow. Welcome to the stream. I hope you enjoy. Probably you won't, because sometimes I can be boring, but welcome anyway. Isn't leveling the whole fun of MMOs? Depends on MMO. If you take an average modern player and ask him to play Lineage 2, he will fucking die now. Like, he will literally have a mental breakdown because it's challenging. But if there are many different ways to progress and to gain XP, like it is in Ashes, so it's not just pure mob grinding. It's also questing, it's also events, it's also commissions, it's also probably caravans, it's gathering, it's processing, it's crafting. So if it's a game with that many possible ways to get XP, like hell, even remember New World, they had mobs, right? Average mob grinding, they had quests, and they had trade skills, which is basically artisan skills. And I used that as a way to level as well, and that kind of worked well. So in a game like Ashes, I wouldn't mind at all long leveling. I guess it depends how fun it's going to be. Yeah, I think we've been seeing MMOs with shit progression in the last years. No one complained about leveling in WoW. Exactly, no one complained about leveling in Lineage, and especially on classic servers, where after like 2.5 to 3 years, there wasn't a single character who reached the level cap. They were like level, 78, 79 out of 80. I came here from the crazy AA vid, staying for Ashes of Creation. AA vid? What do you mean? WoW has story and entertaining progression, and also nostalgia kicks you in. I never played WoW, so I can't really talk a lot about it. You can just call me Roka. Gotcha. Hope Ashes has decent story and quests. Oh! Yeah. I'm having this, maybe I'll have this on stream as well, because, actually, let me double check. We have an error warning. Yeah, a few jet fighters above the sea. Oh, but... Oh, they're hitting a different city, not mine. Okay, we're good. Let's keep watching.
A player perspective, nodes are the key to unlocking content in the world, 1. And then 2, nodes are kind of like a community home that you share the direction of its development and specialization in. So these are little cities, potentially little cities that exist across the world, right? We have over 103 different planned node locations.
Oh, yeah. Also about it's good that he said that. Speaking of the nodes, how do you choose a node? For example, if you focus on a specific artisan skill, right? For example, you want to be, like you want to do weaponsmithing, but the node that you live in, they did not build those, crafting stations, and that may be a motivation for you to relocate to another node. Or they built that weapon station, but the specialization may be different. So maybe they focus on, I don't know, maces, but you need to craft swords. And if you want to craft the best swords, you will need to travel somewhere else, right? And the same applies to gathering, I guess. If one node specializes mostly in, weaponsmithing and armor smithing, then there will be, like, we can probably expect a higher demand for, ores, metals, etc., which is mining. So if you're a miner, you might have a better chance to sell the resources that you gathered, or maybe sell them for a higher price there because the demand is higher, right? And if are nodes connected to storyline or important quests? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. We don't know that yet.
And at the start of the world, if you're fortunate enough to be there when the game launches, this is a unexplored terrain. This is a tabula rasa that lies in front of players to participate.
I mean, like, the next video will be about that. Is that people, when they have a chance to ask devs a question during AMA or like Q&A session, they ask all kinds of relevant stuff that may appear in game like in like fucking 3 years, right? Instead of asking something that is important. So, but once again, how the heck nobody has asked these questions in all these years? Well, because people keep asking about the fucking pets and naval combat and, arenas that we will see maybe like in a couple of years if we're lucky, right? Instead of asking the stuff that matters.
Participate.
Yeah. These are exactly
in the direction of the world's development, and it influences literally every aspect of the game. The core hub for all systems comes in through these nodes, and it branches out and connects with other nodes and all that stuff. So when you kind of walk out into this open, fresh world, you're going to be doing normal MMO things like, killing monsters, collecting experience, advancing your character level, crafting, gathering supplies, and doing quests, right? And those all will stem out from these starting locations. And then as you're doing that, unbeknownst to you, there is in the background some node somewhere near you that you're existing in its what we call zone of influence. And as you collect experience through all these activities that you do in the game, as you would normally do in an MMO, you're contributing that experience to that node or whatever node that you're under its ZOI or zone of influence. When it collects enough experience to threshold to hit the next level, and the first one of which we call a crossroads, you're going to see some tents pop up, you're going to see some NPCs appear, and you're going to now start getting opportunities for quests that kind of hook out into the surrounding area that have, relevant either points of interest or connect to other nodes and kind of send you off on travel. These are going to be task-oriented, they're going to be narrative quest lines, and you're going to be able to tell the type of node based at its first stage, whether or not, scholars appeared or military, appeared, or priests or merchants, right? That's going to kind of indicate, oh, this is the node type, and that node.
Wait, so they connect to other nodes? I'm not actually sure. Like, especially taking into account what we've seen on the past stream, I'm not sure that there will be some kind of, like main storyline or something. So it seems experience from quests contribute to node progression. There are many things that contribute to node progression, like grinding mobs, gathering, completing events, crafting, I believe too. Maybe something else, but I forgot. So that means forcibly you will help other nodes. It's not forcibly, like if that node has something and you participate in activity in its zone of influence, then yes, your actions will contribute to that node's development. And that can be used in the opposite way. So if that's a territory of a node where a rival guild leaves, you might want to refrain from those activities and do them somewhere else. Or, on the other hand, you can focus, for example, on gathering, because there is an element of ecological warfare, like environmental warfare. If you exhaust their resources, it will take more time for those resources to respawn. So yes, you will contribute to the development of their node, but they will suffer without the resources, you know? So it's a very multifaceted question. Well, nobody's forcing you to do anything. Exactly. That's like, you have all the freedom you can possibly have in MMO. You can, like, there is 100 nodes to choose from. You can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can just, you know, make your own choices. Maybe you need a citizenship in a node before you can grow it and avoid growing unrelated nodes. No, that's not how it works. Okay, so that means there is not quest line between nodes. I don't know, but I'm not exactly sure how that works. Or maybe that those quest lines, certain quest lines may appear if two nodes have, you know, like a relation, like a certain like level of relationship, you know, or like reputation for each other, or they have an alliance or a trade agreement, right? Or maybe they are enemies, so you will have quests that are different. You need to, you know, ruin something, break something, kill someone, or stuff like that. We don't know that yet, but once again, hear me out, brother. Don't worry about the things that you don't know about, because the information that we have is limited. In overwhelming majority of cases, you will realize that you were worrying about something that eventually ended up not being a problem at all, because there's like 200 devs there. Do you really think that not a single one of them thought about it, or they are not doing something about it? Come on, don't worry about like stuff that is definitely not reason to worry.
Node type's going to be reflected also in the types of quests and tasks that they have for you to do, right? So
Yep.
If you are a player that tends to gravitate more towards the economic,
I wonder if the lure can be gated, as you won't be able to reach specific nodes. I mean, it depends. It's not gated, it's just not unlocked. It's not gated. Like, those are two different things. So, I mean, if players don't want to unlock something, then they will not have access to it, right? Fair enough, we should wait for Alpha 2 to start complaining. Kinda, yeah.
economic side of things and gathering resources and crafting, and that's kind of your, you know, shtick, so to speak, in an MMO, that's probably where you're going to be doing a majority of your activities. If you're more on the, you know, dungeon delving and, you know, combat and PvP side of things, perhaps the military node type is going to be of interest to you. So once nodes continue to then progress, they lock out the surrounding nodes from progressing beyond them. And that's a very important aspect to how each server is going to be different in Ashes of Creation.
Yeah, that's gonna add some, what's the right word for it? Like replayability. So if you played on one server and then if you play on one server and for whatever reason you want to change and relocate to another server, you're gonna face a completely different world with different nodes, you know?
Because as these nodes advance, they unlock very specific narrative and quest lines. They change the spawners in the world and the reward tables in the world and open up the dungeons and points of interest based on which node progresses.
Do you use Starlink? No, I don't. I have a pretty decent, like, cable internet. I don't know how to say that, but a lot of people do, because Starlink is decent. Especially soldiers use Starlink a lot, because in the areas where they are located, there may be not only issues with you know, the connection, but also there's plenty of, you know, jammers. Like, because one of the elements of the modern warfare is radio electronic warfare. So you're jamming all the network, you're jamming all the internet, you're jamming communication, So yeah, but Starlink is decent. Starlink is a way out. Do you lose net from time to time? Absolutely not. Like maybe once in a year for like an hour or so. Like on average, it's pretty decent and stable, and it's like 1 gigabit per second. Yeah, and the best thing about it is I pay for it like I don't know, like $10-12 per month.
Progressed and made it to the encampment or village stage or town, city, eventually metropolises, right? So these can become sprawling half-kilometer diameter metropolises that players have an opportunity to then do a whole host of things, elect player government.
Yeah, it's not expensive, and same applies to mobile, mobile network, or what, how do you call that? Like basically the quality of your, like, I don't know what's the right word for it for English, like mobile internet and mobile like network. It works pretty cool. And and when it comes to my phone, I pay, it's like about $9 per month or so. With I don't know, are there like any limits on traffic, but I don't remember myself reaching it. And in addition to that, there is a law that all those providers, like both internet and cell phone providers, right? In case if there are massive power outages, they still have to work for at least 3 days after that, like if that happens, to maintain all the networks, etc. Because like we didn't have like that significant power outages, but there were, like back when it was winter of 2022, it was the roughest winter, and sometimes we didn't even have power for the whole day, or maybe we only had a few hours of power in a day. So, and when it's winter, just so that you understand how it all was, there was like in my house, in my room, it was 9 degrees Celsius, right? Outside it was -10. It was cold as fuck, and there was no heat because there was no power. So I was wearing like 2 hoodies. I was sleeping under 3 fucking blankets. I like literally had to go and make myself a tea like every hour. And every half an hour I did push-ups because it was a way to, warm up. But I never complained, because even though it's like, if you compare that to, ordinary circumstances, it kind of sucks. But at the same time, I never complained. Why? Because what I was through, like what I went through, is like 1% of what other people went through. So like I don't feel that I have, any right to complain. Because when I was sitting at home, even with like 9 degrees Celsius in my house, it was cold as fuck. There were people out there in the trenches, and when it's like -15 and it's like it's extremely cold, and not only they were there, but they were also under constant artillery shelling, drone attacks, so yeah, I like, after seeing all that, I just promised myself that I will never ever complain about anything in my life, because I just don't have the right to. Aren't you afraid of being drafted into the war? Like, let's put it that way. According to law, I shouldn't be drafted theoretically, because I have certain health issues, and I also have, my dad has a disability, and that's something that disqualifies you, like both of those reasons. But we live in a crazy time when anything can happen, and if things go bad, I mean, if they draft me, it means that, like, and if they need someone like me, means that things kind of went from bad to worse. But I don't know, like, I'm not really, that would be unfortunate, because I understand that, like, I have no military experience, I'm not in a good physical shape at the moment, and once again, I have like health issues, let's put it that way. But if that happens, it happens, So we kind of had to update so there was like a new application, and we had to, like, every mail from 18 to 60 years had to update their information there, like for the instead of going to the enlistment office, you could do it online. And I did. You can't get drafted below 80 IQ. I'm not sure that I'll be able to pretend that my IQ is lower than 80. Yeah, and I updated all my info. Haven't received any notification yet. Probably they have better candidates, but nobody knows how it will all go, So it's not impossible.
Construct specific types of buildings that specialize, your craft capabilities.
Oh, you see? That's exactly what I was talking about just a little bit earlier, about specialization of, nodes when it comes to crafting stations.
Your training capabilities, your augments and weapon enchantments, and the ability to traverse the
yeah. You can't get drafted below 80 IQ. You also cannot be drafted if you're a male and somehow you manage to, chop your dick off. So it's always a way. If you don't have a dick, then you can't be drafted. I don't know how that works, but it is what it is.
World, it really touches everything. These, in a way, Ashes of Creation could have been called the node game, because that's really what the whole design is centered around.
I think it has a little bit of a better ring than the node game.
Agreed.
Interesting thing about nodes. So recently, another popular game launched that we won't mention by name. Recently launched though, but nice. Territory control.
They are talking about New World.
Is a big part of the end game, right?
Sure.
So, in many ways, there are some parallels to what Intrepid is working on with Ashes of Creation.
Yes.
I'm wondering who came up with this idea first. Was it Ashes of Creation or New World? It's very interesting.
One might say.
One issue that we noticed with that, though, is when a territory is, abandoned or the only way to really change leadership of the area is to allow, opposing factions to take control of it. In Ashes of Creation, villages and metropolises will also have player housing, which, to many, it may be kind of expensive, right?
Isn't Bill Frost from New World? I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, we could probably check that on LinkedIn, but I don't remember if I still have an account there.
Is there something in place where players can swiftly take action prior to a siege?
Yeah.
Changing the mayor during the next election cycle, I guess.
So, I don't want to get into critiquing the design of other games, but what I would say is that there is something to be said for loop fatigue, as I might call it, right? When you are creating a comprehensive world.
Oh yeah, gotcha. Loop fatigue, exactly. That's a very good point. So what he's trying to say, and that's also a point that is always being missed, and that's something that I would like to highlight, is no matter how much content there is in game, over time you will get tired of that. One of the things that make you extend that period when certain activities are still fun is what they have and is what they had in Lineage and what they have in Ashes, and that is open world PvP. And I'll explain why. So here's the thing. Imagine, like we probably all saw the Firebrand showcase, like, right? The dragon, like the dragon world boss, or I don't know, probably a world boss. If that element of PvE of basically killing the world boss is just goes like this, that you come, you farm him, you take the loot, you leave. Maybe first couple of times it will be fun, but then it will end up being a chore. Hang on. Yeah. But in a game with open world PvP, it's not going to be boring. Why? Because every single time that you come, there may be other people who want to farm the same boss. And it's going to be fun because sometimes you will win, sometimes you will lose, but it's never be boring. Like, it will never be boring, you know, because it's exactly how it was in Lineage. So in Lineage, killing a world boss, especially in, you know, not like shortly after the launch, but after some time, was not a big deal and was not an issue for a decent guild, right? But the issue was that there were like 3 other guilds that wanted to do the same thing. So I shared that post on the forum. So there was a thread about your, you know, most memorable MMO experience. It happens right now in TL and it works exactly. So I shared my memorable experience, and that was in Lineage. So we were fighting for a world boss. There were 3 guilds, more than 400 people in total, fighting for approximately 4.5 hours. We didn't win that time, but it was awesome and it was fun because there was so much drama. We were winning at first, then another guild, then the 3rd guild, and you know, you didn't know until the very end who will prevail. You know, it wasn't us, but it was amazing. And that's like, you would do that much more times compared to some, you know, boring instance dungeon that you already know what to do, like after you completed like a couple of times. And instead of fun activity, it turns into a chore, something that you're forced to do, like it was in New World, for example.
That's meant to be really what MMORPGs are, which is many games in one, right? You want to make sure that there is a healthy divide and a healthy balance between what your core gameplay loops are. And the scenario in which players can repeatedly and consistently and constantly be partaking in this type of interaction, such as territory control or sieges, there needs to be some cooldown period. There needs to be a objective and some stability that occurs between those interactions. It cannot be something that is just a repetitive loop. That's really more geared towards session-based games than I...
Exactly. So it ends up being, wait, what did he call it? Hang on.
That occurs between those interactions. It cannot be something that is just a repetitive loop.
Exactly, repetitive. That's the correct word for it. So if you talk about instant stuff, which is going to be 20% of Ash's content, I mean, it's nice if you have a little bit of it, but if all dungeons are instanced, that becomes repetitive. And when it comes to open world content, it's like sometimes when nobody is competing for a certain boss, cool, that feels good because like, oh, okay, this time we can just peacefully farm it. So that will feel like a relief, even though it may still kind of feel repetitive, but it will still feel as a relief as well because like, oh, no competition this time, we're lucky, right? You will be happy about that. But in all other cases, oh, that's another air siren, but it says that like there is no more threat, I believe, right? Yeah, it's over. So yeah, and this way you will make the same content actually fun instead of repetitive. The dynamic aspect of the world and actions you have to take in is what draws me in this game. I'm with you, brother.
That's really more geared towards session-based games than I would say towards MMORPGs. The difference between, I believe, the game you're speaking of and Ashes of Creation...
The game you're speaking of. A game that is not supposed to be named. Hang on. Do you have water here? One sec. Yes, I do. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna... And we are back.
Is that our node sieges, which is what you would most likely refer to as the similarity with the other game's territory controls, is that there is a declaration period that exists prior to the ability to siege a node. There is a significant undertaking of a quest line that's even required to obtain the siege scroll. That requires a significant amount of resources and buy-on from many players, not just one. It's not an automated system, meaning the zone control doesn't just tick in the background, accumulating kind of natural player activity, and then boom, now the siege has been declared, and this is a repeating process that's on a cycle. Additionally, after a node siege is completed, whether through success or failure, there is a cooldown period that is at minimum a month long, since sieges can only occur at the stage 3 of a village, and up to, I believe it's 45 days.
Yeah, it depends on the stage of the node. So the higher is the stage of the node, the longer the cooldown is.
Or 60 days, perhaps. I think it's 60 days for the Metropolis stage. So this is a period in which, you know, civilization has the opportunity to build back, but the difference is in what you're.
I only hope they won't gate most activities through high cooldowns. I mean, I don't mind cooldowns if there is plenty of other activities to do, let's put it that way. I hate to wait. Well, patience is a virtue. But yeah, when it's like, when it comes to sieges, I totally understand the reason behind the cooldown. Because if there was no cooldown, or it was like a day, you know, in order to destroy someone's node, you need to succeed only once, right? No matter how many times you failed, like 1, 2, 3, or 5 times, if you succeed at least once, that node is fucking gone, right? So I understand the cooldown, it makes sense. And once again, that's only the node wars. There are also castle sieges, there are also dungeons, there are also open world bosses. There's also, you know, gathering, crafting, grinding, quests, etc. So I don't think it's gonna be an issue.
Trying to achieve and elicit from the player's emotion. This is not something, node sieges are not intended to be happening all the time and repetitive for a particular node, right? This is a big occurrence. This is a monumental event on the.
Yeah, basically like a castle siege. Like, especially if you take about the node siege of, you know, when it comes to node of high level, like stage 4, like maybe not stage 4, but stage 5 or stage 6, that's gonna be epic, I think.
Server. This is something that will fundamentally change the world should the siege be successful. And in that sense, you want to build excitement. You want to build anticipation. So it really cannot exist as a constant repetitive cycle or.
If you hate to wait, you literally have chosen the worst game to be excited about, you know? Because, yeah, waiting is also a double-edged sword. From one hand, it's easy because there's nothing you need to do. Just let the time pass, right? But on the other hand, it's extremely difficult because there is nothing you can do, right? And, whatever.
Or loop that players are going through. They might participate in other sieges elsewhere against different cities. But one other aspect, and to your point of the question, which is what happens when player activity or involvement begins to lack in a particular system? Well, the first thing I would say as a developer, if that's the case, then we've messed up the system. We need to kind of re-architect potentially how that system was intended to play out. Is it not monumental enough? Are players not participating in it? Is the risk of loss too great compared to the risk of even engaging that system? Those are something that fundamentally we would determine through testing in our alphas and betas, right? But
what I mean, I don't want to mop the floor in a tavern or milk cows while the best activities are on high cooldown. I mean, depends on how many activities you qualify as the best activities. Like, if you only consider node sieges as fun, then yeah, it may be a bit painful. But if you participate in multiple various activities, then it should be kind of fine, right?
I would say to you
and it's not like here's an important thing that also people need to understand. Like, let's imagine I want to chop trees. Yeah, somehow I don't doubt that. So let's imagine that you're only interested in node sieges, right? And it has a 1 month cooldown. So basically you can only participate 1 month in them. And that's something that you don't really like. So not liking it is fine. Like that's, we all like or dislike different things. But what I would rather, like what I'm trying to look at when it comes to, forming my own opinion about something is not my personal preference. It's not like whether I like it or not. It's mostly whether it makes sense or not. Is it a good decision from the game design standpoint? Like, right? So if that's a good decision, but I don't like it, I mean, yeah, I still don't like it. But anyway, I understand why it is the way it is and why it makes sense. So, yeah. Milking cows could also be fun, especially if they're a cool yeah. Especially if you're milking a cow with horns, that can also be fun.
Regards to how our system is architected differently is that we have mechanics in place where nodes create alliances with other nodes. And even if your node might be lacking in the number of citizens or the skill of your citizens to stand up a defense against a potential adversary, you have the ability to create alliances preceding that battle that then you can call on to help assist your node in the defense, right? Another big aspect that's different about Ashes.
Here's another thing. Yeah, that's a good point that applies to your concerns, right? So maybe your node will have a cooldown of like 30, 45, or 60 days, right? But if your node has an alliance with another node and they are being attacked, boom, you have another siege to participate in, right?
Of Creation than I believe the game you're speaking of is our intent from a multiplayer perspective is to have massive battles, and that's something that we tested from a core architecture standpoint with Alpha 1. That was one of our main technical testing points, was having a siege that we had in August of 350 plus people who were participating in that siege, and our servers were doing just fine. So that was a major achievement, especially given how early we were to accomplish that feat, and we're pushing the boundaries even further going, forward.
I'm really like wondering, that's not gonna lie, that's one of my concerns, is the server stability during Alpha 2. So it's good to hear that now, but I'm still, not sure that everything is gonna be perfectly smooth. And I would be like, honestly, I would be more surprised if everything is smooth when it comes to stability than if it's not going to be smooth. Let's put it that way. But it doesn't matter. It's just a step. And that also needs to be tested.
In the number of people that can participate, because the idea behind Ashes of Creation is, we don't have a 1K or 2K pop limit on our servers, right? Our servers are intending to hold 10,000 concurrent users per server. And in that sense, the ability for players to participate in these types of systems and these types of engagements, we want to incorporate as many as possible. So that's why we're pushing limits. We have a lot of great veteran developers who come from games like PlanetSide and EverQuest. PlanetSide holding, I think still to this day, the record for number of players in a particular battle. So it's very important that we're able to hit.
I remember PlanetSide. It's like, if I recall correctly, it's a very old game, but I'm wondering what is that record that he's talking about? How many people participated in that one single battle? But I'm too lazy to look it up, so let's just leave it.
Those types of numbers, because with the alliance system in place that provides a mechanic for.
Hey AV, sorry, I'm not really paying attention to YouTube chat. I just accidentally noticed your comment. Hello, welcome. I mostly reply on Twitch. I don't see the messages from YouTube unless I switch the tab.
You to, curry support from your fellow neighboring nodes is going to be an important dynamic to the health of the server and the health of a node to be able to withstand that attack.
For sure. And you know, you kind of mentioned that, you know, you have these veteran developers and you yourself.
1,168 players in one map. Google it for you. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Not gonna lie, that's interesting. Like the biggest battle that I participated in Lineage was probably the one that I mentioned, like 450 people or something. Around that was pretty epic.
I mean, you've been playing MMOs for a long time.
Yes, I've been playing
right?
them for 29 years. since Neverwinter on AOL, when it was $6 by the hour to play. I was 7 years old in 1992, and at the end of that first month, my mom got like a $2,000 bill from AOL, and she was.
Hey AV, welcome. Yeah, welcome to my Twitch channel and Twitch chat. Thank you so much for following. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your support overall. I appreciate that. Welcome.
Was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't even know what money is. How can I do it? You know, like, what are you talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time.
You know, you knew what money is. You just wanted to play the game, Steven. Don't lie.
There, obviously, since you've played so many of them, since you have, you know, developers who've worked on a lot of these games, you know, there's
Judico. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much for following. Appreciate it very much. Welcome to the stream.
There's influences of these games that have, you know, kind of brought you to where you are, and then, you know, you also have these other games like that.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm yawning a little bit, because I just had I took a nap like a few hours before the stream, because I knew that I'll be streaming, right? I don't know how that works, but I apologize.
Which will not be named, but, you know, there's these other games that where you know, you see them and they launch, and maybe they're a little similar. So are there any lessons that you guys kind of learned from seeing, you know, systems that have some similarities, or from previous games where you're like, this is how they did this, but, you know, maybe we can improve on these, you know, features?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that a lot of games today, you know, developers and designers take inspiration from what they know, and what they know is what they've played. And in that sense, you know, it's I think a healthy interaction for many development studios to be able to lean on, you know, the experiences and lessons that systems in the past are able to tell, right? I mean, that is in and of itself.
I just figured it out. I will need to dedicate some time for to upload some emojis to my channel. Right, but like Twitch is much more complicated and complex when it comes to YouTube, like compared to YouTube. Sorry, yeah, I'll still have to figure it out, but at some point I will.
What feedback is intended to provide. You know, you can draw similarities between some of the systems that Ashes has and some of the systems.
I mean, if other people manage to do that, then it means it is possible. If it is possible, then it means that I can do it too. So yeah, I'll figure it out. I don't think it should be really complicated. I'm just like, what I worry about, what I need to look it up to resize. Yeah, obviously. But I mean, are there like rights to those emojis, or I can just use literally anyone, like any of them, right? That's something that I'm not really sure about. AI generated. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, that may work as well. Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good idea. And everyone who's here, thank you for joining. That's that's my second stream. And yeah, hope you have fun.
Systems that a Lineage 2 had, or that ArcAge had, or that WoW had, right? In that sense, you know, there's a common shared pool of knowledge across players and developers alike that you're able to kind of lean on.
Captain Hook, my respect, brother. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for following. Appreciate your support.
I think the biggest, I mean, and there's a whole host of lessons to be looked at in the way that we've changed certain systems. You know, for example, our open world, you know, PvP system. is based or predicated around this idea of kind of crime points, one might call them, or karma. We call them corruption. We want to avoid the interaction of player killing, PKing, but
Hey man, good luck with the streams. Thank you. I'm kind of still making my feet wet because the last time I was streaming was probably about 6 years ago. Vlad actually remembers that because we were living in the same house. So it was me and 3 other friends, and Vlad was one of them. So he probably remember those times when I was streaming. So yeah, good old days. Yeah, good old days.
We want to support the idea of consensual PvP. So we don't want to put hard restrictions on that, because I think that, hard restrictions are the antithesis of this sand park mentality across our design philosophies. But we do want to discourage it. So we have that corruption system. And in that sense, I think PKing will be a very minimal occurrence as a result.
Exactly. Maybe not on Alpha 2, once again, but on launch and post-launch, it's not going to be that common as people expect it is, because many people come from the games where there was no open world PvP or there was no PK system, and that's something that they are really, 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 really anxious about. And I had, it was one of the first videos that I uploaded about Ashes of Creation, is addressing those concerns and trying to calm people down, saying like, hey, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Don't worry about something that has not happened yet. And even if it will happen, it's still going to be a very unlikely, because in vast majority of cases, even if you're being attacked by someone, there's always a chance to to get away from him, or to de-escalate, or to call your friends, or to fight back, or to make him PK you and ask your friends to kill him instead, or call for bounty hunter. So I remember you from the Ashes forum. You commented on my post here. Was it a good comment, or it was me participating in forum PvP?
Of the corruption system that I added some additional elements to prevent PK characters, to incorporate bounty hunters that can identify the location of PK characters, the ability to drop gear, gaining a scaled amount of corruption based on the level disparity between the player that killed.
So now he is basically addressing all the flaws of the PK system that Lineage 2 had, because Ashes, basically open world PvP and PK system, is identical to Lineage 2 system. And in addition to that, they remove all the flaws of that system. And the funny thing is, despite the fact that Lineage 2 had all those flaws in its PK system, it was still okay. It wasn't a big deal. Yeah, on the whole server with 15,000 players in line, or 10,000 players in line, there may be one PK guild whose only purpose is to just kill as many people as possible, but that's going to be 5 people, and it's usually not that difficult to catch them if you really want to catch them, and you can get some gear from them because they will drop some gear, and it's not that big of a deal. So if it wasn't an issue there, I have no reasons to think that it's going to be an issue here when they put extra efforts into addressing those flaws. Third concern is, if Asmongold or some other big streamer on Alpha gets spawn camped, it's bad marketing. They address that issue as well. If that happens, if your gameplay has the only purpose to ruin someone else's experience with no benefit to you, you can just submit a report, and that person will suffer the consequences of that. And if that happens once, twice, or becomes known, then everybody will think twice before doing that.
Kills in the player that got killed, right? That's going to discourage low-level ganking. There's a lot of elements that I add twists on, because as I experienced these systems or mechanics in previous games, there were well-known faults with them that never got addressed by the developer. Now, I don't know why those things don't get addressed by the developer.
Because the developers are bad people. Like when it comes to Lineage, the path that the game took after 2010 is horrible. And like 90% of people who played Lineage back then, they will agree with me on the spot, like hands down, right away. And yeah, there was little, like, it's interesting how people criticize the communication from Intrepid side, which is true, because there are certain things that can be done better. No, like, I don't deny that, but still, they have a communication. We didn't have it back then. Korean L2 was made for Korean gaming culture. I mean, it was made by Koreans, but it ended up being a popular game, like in South America, in Eastern Europe especially, like the whole CIS region, and in America too. Like there was plenty of people who played there. Money times H2.
Because oftentimes you find frustration amongst player communities at like, why isn't the developer changing this? And oftentimes their anger is misguided, because sometimes you might have a publisher who doesn't have control over the development of the particular game, and they can give this feedback, but it's up to the developer.
Seems like the Asian countries accept pay-to-win mechanics a lot more. I've heard that several times, and I think it is true. Yeah.
To actually change it, and they're trying to balance, having a game that's built in one territory and can be satisfying for a different player community in a different territory, right? So there's elements there that obviously can have a little bit of red tape that prevents this, but yes, I think being able to derive good feedback across a multitude of systems based on our experiences as both developers and players is something that's very important. Last thing I would say is the biggest lesson that I have learned as a player is that good games should not be rushed. Meaning that, oftentimes there are outside influences, whether driven by a board of investors or by a publishing group or whatever. These games take so much to build. It is such an absolute frickin' travesty when they get rushed out the door in the final years of their development.
Exactly. So there are two things that I would like to highlight here. So first of all, it takes a lot of time to actually, develop an MMO, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to make the same mistake as New World did when they basically released an unfinished game that was full of bugs. Not just bugs, but game-breaking bugs, right? And secondly is, it's exactly what I was talking about as well previously, especially in my video on YouTube. So, oh, by the way, if you guys are not subscribed to my YouTube yet, feel free to consider that option, right? So in one of the videos, I was addressing that issue, and it also touches the leveling aspect. So we've been waiting for Ashes for years, for many years. Do you want Ashes to captivate you for like a couple of months? Like, so do you want it to be a game that you play for like a month or two and then go back to your like Fortnite, right? Or Warzone, whatever. Or you want this to be a game that captivates you for years? Because I prefer the latter option, right? So I don't mind longer leveling because it's one of the elements that contributes to that. We'll live in a strange time, so I don't know how to answer. I want early Fortnite back. I remember you playing that. I was watching you. Yeah, I remember. You were also playing Hearthstone. So yeah, there's like plenty of games that have fast leveling, and where are they now? And even if that leveling is fast, what's the point of having that in the first place? And finally, the vast majority of those games are not subscription based. They either have box cost or they have a game shop with some pay to win garbage, right? So they don't really care how long you stay in game. When it comes to subscription based games, especially a game like Ashes that doesn't have any pay to win, only cosmetics, it's crucial for them to prioritize the player retention, because otherwise, if players start leaving, they start getting less funds. Less funds means less salaries, less developers that they can pay for, working on the game. if we have less developers, right, then the patches come like with a like patches and updates have a higher cooldown, right? Which means the game becomes boring faster, which means less players again, which means less funds, etc., etc. And it's an endless cycle, and it's a so-called death spiral. On the flip side, if people get 1 month sub and it sucks, devs won't have money to develop anything anymore. Well, that's an investment anyway. Right, there's going to be people who will play it for 1 month, and if they don't like the game, they will leave. And there's going to be a certain segment of the player base that will do that. It's inevitable. What I'm like, the point that I'm trying to make is the same one that I made on a previous stream, right? Because a game like New World that only has box cost and some skins, they don't care whether you play for like, you know, a week or a year. They already got their money, so they are mostly focused on new player acquisition, because that's players who will bring them more money instead of player retention, right? So as a result, New World has content for what, like a month or two at best at the moment, especially if you are not some hardcore player who has access to the content like Wars and Invasions, right? So that's their monetization strategy. When it comes to subscription-based games, this has to be reconsidered. Vesrex, it's your first message in this chat. Welcome. I definitely want years as well. Same thing happened to me with WoW back in Roth. Never wanted to play another game again, and that's pretty much how I went. Yeah, exactly. And it's crucial to try to explain people, especially casual players, who think that it's somehow bad. Like I literally had this conversation today on the forum where a guy accused me like, hey, if Flanker plays up to 18 hours a day, which is kind of true, right? Then it means that he will, you know, but that when he reaches the max level, he will have like something like 37 days before other players, like average casual player, reaches the level cap. So he will have 37 days of advantage, right? But if the leveling will be longer, like he will have like 100 days of advantage. So I got him. It means that he wants to have advantage for a longer period of time. And I'm like, bro, do you realize that if I have those so-called 37 days of advantage, the moment when a casual player reaches the level cap, I'll have much more experience in both PvP and PvE. I will have a legendary gear that will be enchanted as hell, and I will have more experience, and I will still, like, a casual player cannot compete with a hardcore player. It's inevitable. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be like, 2x advantage. That's going to be 1.5x advantage. So, I mean, I was like, what are you talking about? And you're trying to call me out for like, you're making an accusation that I'm right, making a suggestion because I want to have extra advantage. This is not the case. If you look literally in the other thread, suggesting something, which is removing health bars of non-combatant players to prevent griefing. I'm suggesting doing that even though it goes against my interests. So how does it make sense in your head? I don't understand it. Like, no hatred, no toxicity to anyone, but it just doesn't make sense, and it's on the surface. Like, it's obvious. You just need to open your eyes and see it. Because I don't want to, and I'm afraid, I'm not gonna lie, I'm afraid to end up in a situation like 3 months after the game's launch when I'll be like, told you. But that told you will not give me any satisfaction, because even though I was right, the game will still kind of, die over time. Yeah, I'm in the Discord as well. I guess we both gonna have 37 days advantage then. Well, yeah, probably. And you're more... Shut up. Yeah, so it's like, it's impossible to reason people out of the position that they reasoned themselves in. And this is just if you dive deeper, like I would gladly invite anyone to debate me one-on-one on this topic or on any other topic, even despite the fact that I'm talking in my third language and I can't use all, words and terms and arguments, and I lack verbal flexibility. But like, even if I'll be speaking the third language, that's gonna be like rip after 5 minutes because it just doesn't make sense on so many levels. And I'm like, how am I supposed to talk to such people? Like, ugh.
And because it takes so many people to build a good MMORPG, it takes so much money to create, it takes so much time, it is the biggest disservice possible when it gets rushed out the door because it is such an opportunity lost. And so many of us have experienced rushed games that we beg and plead. Actually, it's interesting. One of the only consumer bases that says no, wait, and take your time is the MMORPG community. So, well, that and maybe medical technology, but but it is a very important aspect that I think I take close to my heart, and it's great to see our community understanding of that. Obviously, my intent was to have Ashes of Creation out sooner than we are here today, but along the way, as we have learned and grown and continued this development process, it takes time. And our community has been very, very not only forgiving but supportive of that as well. And
exactly. Let me Google it so that I can explain what I meant by that. Hang on. Yeah, so here is it. What I was talking about, and that's exactly what he talks about right now as well, is a planning bias. So the planning bias is a cognitive bias that describes people's tendency to underestimate the amount of time, costs, and risks of future actions while overestimating the benefits of those actions. So it has been shown to impact individuals as well as organizations and can lead to suboptimal decision making. So that's what I was talking about, and that's what he describes now. And it's very common. We all become a victim of that bias, like from time to time. So that's the reason why they are like, the funniest thing is when it came to the announcement of Alpha 2 date, they said like, we want to be very careful. We don't want to, announce a date and then postpone it. Then they announced the date and they postponed it because once again, you need to be super careful and super skeptical when it comes to that. Because obviously, immediately people started whining about that. But like, I was like, okay, I would understand that if the delay was like 6 months, right? Or I don't know, longer than that. But we've been waiting for this game for years, and it's only a 4 weeks delay. Like 4 weeks. What is 4 weeks? It's nothing. Like, your life does not depend on those 4 weeks. And if they need those 4 weeks, I'd rather let them have it instead of, once again, dropping a game that is not fully finished. So, yeah.
That's great to see.
A lot of players are looking forward to all of the mounts in the game because it seems like you always have a different one that you're on. You're always showing them off.
Yeah, that was something that I was surprised to find out, like how many people are actually excited about the mounts and how many people ask questions about them, because I was like, okay, if this thing can, help me to get from point A to point B faster, I don't care how it looks. Like, is that a dragon? Okay, is that a horse? I don't care. It achieves its function. I don't know how it, I don't care how it looks. Yeah, I thought the same, and it's completely normal for a game to change directions and scopes in developing stages. Absolutely. Mounts are like trophies for some people. Yeah, kinda. Like, it's some nice visual elements. And, using a rare mount will probably, a reason to show off and to flex for some people. I get that, but I was just surprised that there are so many people that care about it so much. Because I was like, okay, mounts, good.
Taming and animal husbandry is currently in the works, and we've seen some really interesting mounts on your monthly live streams. So, how many of the animals do we see out in the world will we be able to tame or have as a mount?
I would say a pretty good portion. You know,
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that my mic is off. What is this? Like, what is this? Like, what is this? Like, is this some new bottle design? Like, it's the first time I see this, but my parents brought a few bottles of, like, they were traveling back from Germany to Ukraine, and they brought a few bottles, and all those bottles have those caps, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, do I now need them to be attached to the bottle so that I don't lose it? Or, like, somehow I've never, like, that never happened in 32 years of my life. Or, like, what's the purpose of that? Maybe there's something I don't know and it's actually a good idea. I hate it as well. You're from EU as well, aren't you? Like, I'm from Eastern Europe, from Ukraine. So we don't really have that, you know, invention here, let's put it that way. So we just have ordinary bottles when you can just open it and that's it. So I was like, it's just the water that is some, what's this, Bulgarian or something? Yeah, Bulgarian water. So I was like, the hell, you know?
you mentioned math. It's funny actually. Post Alpha 1, you know, we told the community, hey, there's going to be a while of updates that are going to seem, you know, a little bit lackluster compared to the updates you had been receiving.
Keeping the cap, Grant Patak. Thank you, sir, for for giving me a follow and for coming to the stream. Welcome. Keeping the cap on the bottle helps to stop the plastic caps ending up on the beaches or in fish's stomach. Really? Is that the reason behind it? I never heard about it. Like, I honestly, it's like one of the first time that I encountered this, because I'm like, huh? But okay, maybe that helps. I don't know how effective that is, but I mean, I don't really mind it.
Preceding Alpha 1, right? And that's because we're going through this process of iterating and taking stock and the direction of certain systems, right? So we were showing a lot of mounts because, you know, while design and engineering are iterating and changing systems and whatnot, art just, you know, they have a master asset list. They got to make those assets and they just keep on trucking, right? They don't care about what design and engineering per se are doing. They're continuing on their asset creation.
And by that, it stops microplastic from ending up in our food chain, which is a good thing, in my opinion. I think I've never threw a water bottle without a cap. Yeah, same here. Same here. And how do you do that with the bottles that are made not out of plastic, but out of glass? There's no way to do it. But at the same time, like, microplastic, like, it's a new fancy word that I recently stumbled upon. Like, I haven't seen that word, like, trending, let's put it that way, but now somehow it's a thing. Well, every day you learn something new. Glass bottles don't have plastic caps. Yeah, thank you very much. I've never seen a glass bottle in my life. Thank you for letting me know. Cork for glass. I don't know what that word means.
So it's become a little bit of a meme over the last probably 5 or 6 developer updates that I jump on and it's like, all right, is everybody ready to...
Was watching your vid on cosmetics. They don't bother me either. But one thing I would say regarding cosmetics and transmog is that it was really cool to see people's actual gear back in original WoW expansions. You didn't need to inspect someone to know if they were a badass. Yeah, that's something new to me as well. Like the whole concept of transmog, because I was like, what? Like, what is that word? And then I looked it up. Cork is the type of cap. Oh, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I was like, it's kind of, you know, like I've never seen that just in the game. So yeah, well, maybe in New World. But in New World, you always knew who that is, but just by... because everyone is level 60, like, I knew that because when I was playing it, the level 60 was a cap. And then, like, you just know who they are by seeing which weapon they have in their hands, right? So it wasn't a problem. But yeah, microplastics are there like 2 millimeters or less, broken down by erosion. Gotcha. Changing gear appearance, which I think Ashes will have. I mean, from what I understand, they will have it, but there will be there will be an option to actually like inspect the players and see what class they are, what level they are, and what is the armor that they are actually wearing, instead of seeing just the cosmetics. But even if there was no such thing, I wouldn't care as well, because like over time you will still remember all the players and you will see their weapons and stuff like that. So like personally, I don't really care about it, but once again, I understand that there are people who will be concerned about that.
To see some mounts. So that's why I think people were really happy with the latest UE5 reveal. But to answer your question, a significant portion of the world population will be available for taming and breeding as part of the animal husbandry system. And the reason why we have such a diverse and eclectic, selection of mounts that you have seen and others have seen is because not only is this a method by which we help.
Because there is a lot of people who like mounts, apparently, and that's something that drew people's attention. And they're like, oh, that's a cool mount. I want to, have it, own it, ride it when the game comes out, right? That's the thing, I guess.
Help to populate.
Yeah, and the amount of questions about animal husbandry is surprisingly very high compared to other artisan skills. So yeah, I guess that's something that people like. Visual progression is really important for me, but I don't know about cosmetics because Steven already said that in-game obtained cosmetics will be as good as the ones in the shop. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of cosmetics in general. I'd prefer just ordinary armor and gear just to look good, but I understand the reason why they need cosmetics in games. First of all, because there are people who like that, and no, that's secondly. First of all, it's because they need an extra source of revenue. About that, we'll see if it's true. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's not something that I'm personally a big fan of, but I understand the logic behind it, so I'm okay with that. I'm planning to do animal husbandry. I will be trying to provide my guild with strong style bears on the server. Sounds like a plan. Imagine if there is a sword with a special effect like bonus fire damage, but if the enemy transmuted some other random sword, you wouldn't know in that instance of combat. But yeah, not the biggest deal, and Intrepid needs the money. I mean, yeah, you'll just, I don't know, like, just find a way to kill him one way or another, and you won't care about the weapon that he uses. If owlbears are going to be, well, we don't know. We'll see that.
The world with
like owlbear. Okay, I don't want to imagine that thing, to be honest.
NPCs, but it is also part of a very robust approach to our animal husbandry system. And mounts have been always near and dear to my heart as a player in MMOs that I've played, and you don't really see... There are a few games that do them well, but they're...
Also not a fan of turning all players with a basic gear during wars to reduce lag. I understand, but this is a necessary thing. Because if there is a 500 battle, a battle with 500 people, right? And all those characters are unique because you use the character creator to, basically make them. All of them have different gear that needs to, I don't know what's the right word for it, like to render or so, or to be displayed. And then all those 500 people might also have pets or mounts, which is also an extra, another thing that kind of loads the server, I suppose. And then all those 500 people and 500 mounts may be casting something, and there is going to be, creating those visual effects. And that's a lot. So if there's an opportunity to, reduce that load on the server, I don't know, once again, sorry, I don't know what's the correct word for it in English, so I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So if there's any way to reduce that, they will and they kind of should use that. Jake, nuke the blue guy. Which guy? They're all blue. Yeah, but you will have the nameplates. Nameplates will solve that issue, I believe. I mean, it was the same in New World, and I don't recall any, like, it was 50 versus 50, but I don't recall having any issues with that whatsoever.
There's a lot of games that don't do them well or don't even care to pay attention to them. And I think that's a significant misdirection in development, because these are elements of player-owned assets that are very, very important to many people. I think it's something that it is a healthy focus to have in a game, especially when those
Yeah, it's a healthy focus to have when there's a lot of people who find that particular aspect of the game interesting. New World build variety was shallow. It didn't matter that much. Kind of.
amounts are achievable in game, and they are focused through a system that kind of leverages the ability for players to go out activity-wise, capture these things, bring them back to their freehold, begin to experiment and discover the genetic trees that are possible in creating, weird-looking mounts, and then they have something that's unique to them, right? Or that's difficult to acquire, and that's an element that I think many players resonate with.
The pets themselves won't increase the player power directly, right? And instead, it kind of takes a portion of the player's power when they are summoned. So will there be specific situations or even specific classes where you kind of foresee combat pets as being used more often?
Yeah, so
What role you planning on for A2? Like, the primary role is a ranger, obviously. I don't know. I don't know about the secondary archetype because it's still a long way off. But I plan to play all 6 available archetypes because we'll have plenty of time during Alpha 2. So I guess I'll have enough time to play them all and test them all. Not only just to find the one that fits my playstyle the most, because like in vast majority of games I still played as a ranger. Sorry. Okay. The fun is about to begin soon, apparently. There are kamikaze drones above the sea approaching, but they are still far. We keep monitoring the situation. Yeah. Okay, thank you for letting us know. And yeah, that's the answer to your question. What's the XP rate in Alpha 1? I don't know. I didn't participate in Alpha 1, but I guess it was just, ordinary, like X1 or whatever it is.
The idea of combat pets versus summon pets, right? We have a summoner archetype, and the summoner archetype does.
It's only 25 levels, so it should be quick. Yes, but the level 25 will be the cap for Alpha 2. That's the point. Maybe it will change in Phase 3 so that you actually get to experience secondary archetypes, but not in Phase 1 or 2. What's the XP rate? Oh, in Alpha 2? I don't know. I guess that's something that they will, it's going to be the default XP rate, I suppose, because we never heard anything that it's going to be faster, right? And progression is going to be one of the things that they will focus on during Phase 1, right? So I guess based on that, they will see if that was a good choice, and they will adjust it accordingly. Either make it faster, which I hope will never happen because it's fast enough already, or hopefully make it slower.
Not have that portion of power taken away when they summon their pet, right? That's part of their class kit. That's part of their power is their summon. So setting that aside for a moment, combat pets, which can be acquired by any archetype, and this is essentially an item that exists within your backpack. You cast the item to summon your pet. When it is summoned, it's not intended to be a vertical gain of power, because when you make pets, combat pets at least, a vertical power gain,
then what's the point of having a summoner, right? in the last video with a new player guide where they kill some mobs, the XP bar moved quite fast. Yeah, I think that the reason behind that was because it was a full group, first of all, because when you're in a group, you have a party XP bonus that varies, if I recall correctly, from 1.3 to 1.4, depending on the number of group members. And the second reason is they were actually in the elite zone that got unlocked, right? So that may be one of the things. But once again, we'll see how it all goes in Alpha 2.
Then it becomes a no choice solution.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, because if combat paths gives you, like, provides vertical progression, then it means that you, like, everyone will be using them because it's mandatory.
You must have a combat pet. If you want to play efficiently, you must have a combat pet. And I wanted to steer clear of that because the way I wanted to approach combat pets was more of a horizontal power choice, meaning depending on the type of encounter you're facing, depending on the threat assessment you have, a combat pet might be relevant or it might not. One combat pet might be more relevant than another combat pet, and that's part of your gear acquisition, your item chase, to attain this more comprehensive selection of combat pets that you can have available to you and can be summoned in the event that you want to engage an encounter with a different aspect of your power curve, right? Not vertical, but horizontal. So in that sense, it was something that is not intended to provide a no-choice solution, just be a vertical power gain, but rather be depending on the situation.
Initially...
when was Rogue set for phase 2? I believe it was phase 2, yeah. If I recall correctly, it was phase 2. So sometime in phase 2. So I hope I'll have enough time to test the 6 archetypes, so when the Rogue comes out, I'm like, okay, new one.
The project was primarily self-funded.
I want a pet rat. It's Leviosa, Ron, not Leviosa.
By you. So in a project like this that takes a lot of funding, and like you were saying before, it takes so long to create.
You know what I want? I want a freehold, and I want a cat there, or several cats. That's even better.
Were there concerns about being able to keep your staff on and continue funding the project?
No, there wasn't any concerns about that. The financial wherewithal that myself and my husband John have to contribute to the project is well beyond what we had anticipated from a budgetary standpoint.
Yeah, but 2.5 years later, previously they said that. Who's John? It's Steven's husband. They expected to spend, hang on, I don't want to be wrong. Never mind. Yeah, but I think that's what he said.
As we began to progress in the development of Ashes and started...
Yeah, so basically they didn't know that. Yeah. You see, every day you learn something new. And do you guys know, so Ashes of Creation. Do you know the code name of Ashes of Creation that they used before they came up to this name? Like the previous name of Ashes of Creation that the game originally had. Does anybody know? No. It was the Epoch. No. The Epoch was like the Battle Royale. It was the World of Origins. A fun fact for you.
Reaching what we...
So do you like the World of Origins or do you like Ashes of Creation more?
Felt, obviously we wanted to initially allocate towards the project. We knew that we were going to go far above that. so it was something that we were prepared.
But did you knew that these systems came from EverQuest Next? AOC that better. Yeah, AOC is better. I know the like 4 primary game that they took inspiration from, which is Arcade, Lineage, Star Wars Galaxies, and EVE Online. Obviously, this list can be a bit longer than that, because once again, I don't know for a fact who came up with this idea about nodes first, whether it was New World or it was Ashes of Creation. And but yeah, there may be other games they took certain systems or mechanics from or ideas from. When he hired the main people from that game. Oh, okay, gotcha. Evie, is that is that a positive reaction or a negative one? Yeah, everyone who just joined, welcome to the stream. Get yourself comfortable. We're watching the old Steven's interviews that were not seen by many people. And we're comparing like what was then to what's going on now. Welcome.
Prepared for and still are. But the bottom line for us is, our hiring schedule has been about sustainability. One thing that I can't stand as, having now been newly joined to this industry over the last 6 years, is the cyclical nature of hiring on for a project and then firing the team, and hiring for the next project and firing the team. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, I'm sure every company would want to keep their talent, perpetually. And our goal has been to,
Oh, this mount looks like I don't know how, like, what's the correct word for it, like hippogriff or something like that. It should be like that from Harry Potter, right? Do you mind watching something? Depends on what that is, I suppose.
Hire obviously at a pace that makes sense for the project, and as we are approaching kind of this apex.
Yeah, sure. Like, related to Ashes, no problem. We almost finished this one. We can definitely watch whatever you want me to watch after we finish with this one. Yeah, I think so. Maybe the bot will catch it, but I will see it, I think. Or you can just share it on Discord if that's not gonna work. Yeah, I see the link. I'll check it out. Or actually, hang on. I'm gonna take some security measures. Hang on. Switch here, and then I'll click the link, because I know it may be risky. It doesn't mean that I don't trust you specifically. I just don't trust the links. Okay, this looks okay. Let's see what this is all about. Yeah. Hang on, sorry. Which class did you play in Lineage 2? One sec. I mostly played... So, hang on, let me remember. I played as a destroyer. But that's just a little bit. Obviously, I played as a crafter and spoiler, because I think everyone did. I mostly played as a Moonlight Sentinel, which is Elven Archer, and also as Elemental Master, which is Elven Summoner. And I also, on one server, I played as a Sword Singer, which is a Bard. Okay, let's see what this is all about.
And set up the city of Halas. And of course that starts out as a little tent city. And nobody knows what's in the area, so there's all kinds of little dynamic quest opportunities that appear. Just so you understand what a rallying call is, I think everybody here knows what a public quest is. All right, okay, cool. So with a rallying call...
Yeah, I've seen that videos with public quests on Orange YouTube.
It's kind of like a public quest. It is different, but it's kind of like a public quest where every...
Cool, I played Duelist, yeah. Gladiator. It was a very popular class at some point, yeah.
Single person in the game is on that rallying call together at the same time. And it's going to take 2, maybe 3 months of real time for it to be accomplished. But the trick is, you don't know where the stages are. You don't know what events will trigger the story to move forward. And it's different on every server.
Yeah, I can see some similarities with the Ashes of Creation design. Yeah, makes sense. And when... Oh, it's live 2013. Yeah, maybe that's where they got the idea from.
You'll progress it a lot differently, and we'll show you that as it goes through. So when the Combine Accord tells you to go out here and establish that tent city, now you can ignore what they said and just explore out on your own. That's always an option. You can go do anything you want to. But if you want to participate
That sounds familiar.
in the rallying call, then you want to go to that tent city and start finding the little ways that you can participate in it. One of the ways that you might be able to do that is by more of a crafting sort of thing, by gathering resources, helping to build a palisade log wall around the city, so on and so forth. You might also get together with your friends and form a group and strike out into the woods to find out what's out there and possibly pacify any dangers that you find. And that's where the fun begins, because you don't exactly know why the next stage might trigger. It might be because you got the log walls up, or it might be because you pacified the goblins in the woods too greatly. Whatever it is, you trigger the next stage of the rallying call, and what might happen then is that the goblins start showing up and burning your outlying villages.
Is it, yeah, like, should we, like, I think I got the idea, what you wanted to show. Like, is there anything else that I should see further?
Now that
Because, yeah, I understand the point that you're trying to make in general. So, yeah, it makes sense. Right, 1 second. The whole video explains what Ashes of Creation is basically, yeah. Makes sense. Okay, let's go back to this one.
Of development where we just have a lot of content to create. We have a lot of assets that need to be done. We're going to be growing to probably about 170 to 175, I think.
Yeah, that's what he says about, and that was exactly my thought. Like, they have so many plans, ambitious plans, and I really hope they deliver at least, like, half of them
over the next year. It is very important to us that not only do we create a culture that's enjoyable for our team, an atmosphere that people want to show up to work each day and are passionate about the project, but also the plans we have post-launch as well. And that team is going to service those plans, not just from a DevOps or LiveOps perspective, but also from a development perspective, where we can take the IP Ashes of Creation outside of just the MMORPG as well. That's a very important component of what we're creating here. And I think ultimately, when John and I take a look at the success that Ashes has already had, not just from the project's perspective as a game, we are also falling in love with the visuals, with the mechanics, the systems, and seeing this thing come to fruition. But we have millions of pre-registered users for the product already, and we are still a significant portion of the way out from actually launching. That for
Okay, it looks like I need to do something with links. Hang on, how do I ban this individual? Hang on. Yeah, click on it, yeah. Account was created 14 hours ago. Okay, have I banned him? Okay, let me report him as well. Should I report him for terrorism? Okay, I reported him. Take that. Wait, is the message still there? How do I delete this? Yeah, okay. Oh, okay, probably I should do it here. Is there any way to do it here? Like, it should be easy. Why am I having difficulties with that? Warren? No, okay, that's it. Yeah, okay. I think it worked. Not the way that why I can't just click on the message and just delete it. It should be like, hello, Twitch. Okay.
For us, just from a sheer return on investment perspective, indicates, the success that our, work is going to yield, that our investment is going to yield. So for us, from a financial wherewithal and capability standpoint, we are capable of progressing the development of the project until completion, depending on how long that is going to take, obviously. But also from a sheer reward factor, it's something we're really looking forward to see the launch of this game, because I do truly believe, based on the metrics that we're looking at, that this will be one of the largest and most successful MMOs.
Oh yeah, actually, as you can see, my lamp is back because it died during the last stream, but fortunately it wasn't the lamp itself, it was the adapter. So I got a new one, and I have to pick up 2 more tomorrow because I just decided to have a few extra just in case. So I'm like, Igor Harley, thank you so much for your support and for following. Welcome to the stream. Hope you'll have a nice time. Has John ever been live? I'm not sure. I haven't seen him.
Obviously, thought about this. You've funded it, but was there ever a point? I mean, where maybe you weren't specifically looking for investors, but
love some people. Same applies to you. Thank you very much for your follow. Welcome. Oh well, not welcome. You've been here, I believe, even the last time, right? On the first stream. I think he was on on their charity stream. Yeah, they also have charity streams. I remember them. Maybe. I haven't. I don't remember. To be honest.
Maybe especially in other regions, were you ever maybe possibly courting like publishers or something like that? And yeah.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. I think one of the obvious answers there is
Blinker will go crazy until the alpha starts. I mean, I'm excited about it, but I mean, I know how to wait. Let's put it that way. Obviously, I would want the alpha to start tomorrow, but I don't mind waiting as well.
Going to be, Japan, Korea, China, Southeast Asia. Those are areas where, it doesn't...
That has a lot of potential audience.
Makes sense for MMOs. Us to attempt to be the publisher. We don't have the knowledge of what marketing looks like, of what culturalization looks like, of localization, of the player bases there are different than that.
This game will have RMT 100%. Like any game has RMT. Yeah, the question is not whether it will have it or not. The question is at what scale. People will make a living through this game. Yeah, but once again, they implemented certain things that will make it... I mean, you can't eliminate it completely, but you can make it difficult. So the glint system itself is the first one, and it's an important thing. So you're not just getting gold from from killing mobs, right? You need to... I mean, you can exchange glint to gold in the node, but that won't be much because you might want to use caravans for that. Secondly, the report system is also... once again, I've said that multiple times and I'll say it again. I hope they won't make the same mistake as New World did, where like New World had a report system, but it just didn't work. Not only it didn't work, but it worked in the opposite way, when you can just mass report, I don't know, the shot caller of the enemy guild, and he will get banned, and he will not participate in the war against you, right? That's not the way the report system is supposed to work. And same applied to bots. There were so many bots. I've seen them with my own eyes. And the economy of New World broke instantly. Yes, that's exactly what happened. So... yeah, and also subscription. Wait, New World had a box... yeah, but even though New World had a box cost that was like more expensive than the Asha subscription, for example, right? there were no repercussions there, and bots existed there for, you know, for many months prior to being banned, if they got banned, even if they got banned eventually. My favorite part about New World was dragging game window to be invincible. Hell yeah, that was just I don't have the words to describe it. Wait, what's the phrase for it? Hang on. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. Yeah, I believe it goes like that.
Of Western countries of the United States, North America, or EU, right? Our intent, obviously, is we'll be self-publishing in EU and in North America. But, you know, Latin America, South America, MENA, Southeast Asia, China, South Korea, Japan, those are areas where we look for partners, and we are constantly engaging in discussions with, you know, potential partners there. We have them as part of our playtests. You know, when it makes sense for us to engage on a potential publishing partnership in those locations, that's when we will begin to really engage and see which partner makes sense.
Excellent.
100%.
You know, you have several pre-order packs available, and you know, with Alpha 2 on the horizon, have you seen an increase in players?
How old is this vid? More than 2 years ago, so between 2 and 3 years.
Picking up the Voyager packs?
Oh yeah, I mean we saw a significant peak in the number of individuals once they saw our preview weekend of Alpha 1 chip in and support the project by purchasing an Alpha 1 package. Now that those have subsided and Alpha 1's no longer present, of course the Voyager pack is the next pack that players are participating in. But one very important note, you know, that I have said in the past and want to reiterate here again is that making an MMORPG is a big process, right? There have been many MMO projects that have come before and have, you know, failed to deliver on their promises. And that has created a sentiment of almost like...
Does anybody know what software this is? Which software are they using to design this bird?
like MMO player jadedness, where they're very skeptical of anyone or
Maya 3D. Okay.
anything coming to the MMORPG community and saying, hey, we're going to do these great things and just trust us, it's happening and we're doing this stuff and here's some concept art and here's some teasers here and there, right? It makes sense for players to wait to support projects, honestly. If people do not feel 100% confident in a idea or in a visual that they're watching or the gameplay that they're...
Blue Tier Games, hello. If I recall correctly, you were on the previous stream too, right? Because your name looks familiar. Yeah, okay, cool. Welcome.
Seeing or whatever. The great thing about transparent development is that you get to sit back without contributing anything towards the project and still watch its development. You still have a voice in being able to participate in our Reddits or on our social media platforms or on our forums, right? That's the great thing about transparent development process, and I want to caution anybody who's on the fence about supporting Ashes of Creation. The game is going to be created and completed without your support financially. So if you don't want to support Ashes of Creation by purchasing a pre-order package, by all means, do not do that. Wait, because we don't have a box price. We're just a subscription model game with a microtransaction market that has no pay to win and will never have pay to win whatsoever in it. So you can wait, sit back.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember you. You are from TikTok, right?
Watch, and you can jump in later when the game is launching with just a $15 subscription. That's something that I think is beneficial to the MMORPG genre as a whole. If more companies are able to facilitate something to that degree, I think it will be a very beneficial thing. I think one important element to how we approach... Okay, so obviously from a monetization perspective, MMOs exist within three categories or some combination of those three, right? Box price, subscription, microtransaction market. Now, free-to-play usually incorporates...
These fucking bots. Hang on. I need to ban this fucker. No, I don't want I don't want to make him a moderator. Yeah, okay, there is a button. Here, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, now I know how to do that. It's not a bot, it was my... Yeah. Okay, every day you learn something new. There is actually a button to ban him. I just didn't notice it.
Incorporates a microtransaction market that is not necessarily what players want because it does incorporate power gain, and that's the way that they incentivize players to make purchases. Box price incorporates an element of barrier to entry, right? Where players don't know
That's actually also a good point.
if they're going to.
Because box price is usually much higher than $15. Like, lower barriers. Like, there's, like, are you going to play Alpha 2? Yes, and I'm going to play it. I'm going to grind it 24/7, at least, I think, during the first phase, when the time is limited and you only have 3 days a week, so I'll make sure to focus on that. Are you in a guild yet? I am. It's a U guild, Quintessence. No, I'm not a guild leader. Like, I may end up being a static group leader if I decide to choose this path, but I'll make that decision throughout Alpha 2, I think. And no, I just, like, I have too many stuff to do. Like, I need to play the game, actually, and then I need to make content for, like, to stream, to make YouTube videos, to make TikTok videos, and that's a lot. Like, it takes a lot of time, especially for me, because when I'm making a video, I'm speaking in my third language, so it's not my native language, and as a result, it takes more time. So, yeah. Oh yeah, we were talking about the monetization. Yeah, so subscription will have a lower barrier entry. Obviously, the lowest barrier entry is the absence of, like, it's a free-to-play game. Don't worry, your English is better. Well, thank you. But as I said in my recent video that I uploaded earlier today to YouTube, we all know that free cheese can only be found in a mousetrap. So if you are not asked to pay for the game, then it means the game will milk you in other ways, right? With microtransactions and pay to win. And that's not the type of games that I enjoy.
To enjoy the game, and they don't want to necessarily shell out 50 or 40 bucks initially on the box price because they want to have an opportunity to experience that game. A subscription model is really beneficial because it's a low barrier to entry. It has a persistent revenue stream to the company, so it is then incumbent upon the developers to create new and compelling content.
Exactly. I haven't seen this video, but this is exactly the point that I made, and they understand it too. And the awesome thing that they understand it is the fact that they will prioritize player retention, and that's exactly what he was talking about. Thank you very much, Steven, for understanding this. This is crucial. I mean, obviously, you should understand this. The free cheese can only be found in a mousetrap. Damn, what a good quote. There is even a better quote that goes after this one, that the fact that the cheese is not free is not a guarantee that there is no mousetrap. Think about it. I think the cosmetics will be enough to sustain the game, maybe. Well, it depends on the cosmetics itself, how many different options they have. Like, if it's only New World, when they had only, like, several skins on launch, that's one thing. But if they have, like, many different options, that's decent too. And obviously on the price. And obviously, like, as I mentioned in the previous video as well, like, and on previous stream too, like, I usually don't buy skins in games, but I bought one, like, the first time ever I bought it in New World because my character looked ugly as fuck. So, and I just couldn't look at it. It was so terrible. And also, the good thing, hang on, everything I see is pleasing me, but the metal armor are looking leather armors for now. Hopefully they will. Yeah, obviously that will be polished over time, I think. So the point that I was trying to make is, when it comes to cosmetics, Ashes not only has skins for armor, like for gear, but also for mounts, for freeholds, for something else, if I recall correctly. But they're like, there are more opportunities for players to buy, different types of cosmetics depending on their preferences. Guildhall, yeah. But in New World, all the armor set was disgusting. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, Voidbent armor, if you remember it, was kind of like okay-ish. Druid armor was like okay, but other than that, it wasn't.
And a release schedule that makes sense to support that subscription model. And from my experience, having played the gambit of those three types of monetization practices, my most enjoyable and most sustained experiences have been within a subscription-based model.
Exactly. So first of all, there's one more thing. Once again, I mentioned that in the video, so those who watched the video that I uploaded today on YouTube, they will remember it. But the point is that many people make is that they will spend more money on a game with subscription over time. But they miss a very important thing, that is basically if you spend more money on the game, it means that at the very least, you are not bored, or in the best case scenario, you are enjoying the game. So it's not a bad thing. Like if there is value, like it's okay to pay for that.
The approach that we've taken towards cosmetics is that for me, when I'm a collector, and I love to collect anything that is different, whether or not I even like this thing. I oftentimes give a story about an MMO I played in the past where they had these terrible loot boxes, and in the loot box there was like this 1% chance to get this bear mount. It wasn't anything super powerful. It didn't like do anything game mechanic.
Ashes of EverQuest. Sorry guys. As I said, I don't really look at YouTube comments. I used to always joke about Star Wars The Old Republic was World of Star Wars Craft. Oh, okay. It was just a blend and a copy. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so I mostly focus on Twitch chat.
Mechanically wise, it was just a really cool looking bear, and I think I bought like $700 worth of the loot boxes and finally got my frickin' bear. And literally the next month they released the bear for $15 from the loot box into
that. I'm curious what path the CC comms will go. I usually enjoy this. CC comms will go. Oh, you mean the crowd control? I've seen that there's a dev discussion on the forum now when they're asking for feedback, but I didn't really write anything because I don't really have any good idea, so I'll just deal with whatever their final decision will be. And yeah, I remember Steven mentioning this story, and that's a perfect example of a terrible monetization when you give people an option to get someone, but they have to spend like a decent amount of money, like $700, right? And after some time, you just release it for like $15. That's like, what? Just release another amount for $15 if you want to do so, but it's just terrible. Like it's
to the marketplace, and I almost threw my keyboard at the screen, not because I was angry about the $700. Obviously, I am fortunate enough to spend the $700, and whatever. That's not necessarily a good thing, but I did it. I'm supporting a bad habit of companies using loot boxes. I don't agree with loot boxes, but it is what it is. But the fact that they then just blatantly smacked the players in the face and
the audacity, it's just
offered it in the next month was something so principally angering to me that
And at least, like, if there is a good thing about Steven going through that unpleasant experience, is that he knows how it feels, and he will not do that to the audience of his game.
I almost quit the game at that point. I ended up quitting the game later because they undermined the player economy by introducing some really strong pay-to-win mechanics into the marketplace. But my point is that when it comes to item exclusivity and these cosmetics, I want our players to rest assured that when we say exclusive, when we say this isn't going to be something that's then released on some holiday schedule in the future, like, you can rest assured if you're going to shell out money for a cosmetic item, it is going to be something that the company's not going to turn back on and say, okay, now we're offering it to everybody at some later date, right? So when we talk about our microtransactions, I am a big proponent of no pay to win whatsoever, no even quality of life aspects
Thank God.
present in the game, meaning like faster travel, expanded inventory system, stuff like that. I think that players play games for one of two reasons. Either hard work, dedication, and achievement, or skill-based achievements, right? Those are typically the reasons why players look to excel and persist their performance and achieve things in the game, is because one of those, either they're very skilled and they can do things other players can't do the game, and they want to see that reward and achievement mean something, right? In that sense, touching anything in the game that relates to those two things should not be done from a purchase point perspective. Cosmetics, on the other hand, I view as a horizontal difference in how you're representing your character. That now, what that means and how we present our cosmetic purchases is that they will not be better than the in-game achievable cosmetics. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. They will be
Yeah, I think we can just skip this part a little bit because we already know that. And we discussed it. Let's see.
But at the end of the day, it takes a lot of money to upkeep the game. It takes a lot of money to service the game, to update the game, to expand the content of the game. And we want to make sure that in our options of revenue to the players, that we're being respectful of their achievements in the game. We're being respectful of, that aspect of not including pay to win in the game, because long-term wise, the longevity of that player base is important. And we don't want to chip away at that thing. So, that's kind of been my philosophy towards the monetization of
Excellent.
Ashes.
So, just about to end here. So, of course, I have to. It's the obligatory question, because you've got this coming on the horizon here, and I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to get. But
okay,
Alpha 2.
Wait, I was about to say that he's going to ask about Alpha 2 date.
When are we going to see it? Are we going to be seeing it first quarter,
Exactly.
second quarter? You want to shoot us out a release date right now?
I have learned in my evolution as a game director that while every ounce of me wants to be able to say, this is what our internal schedule looks like, and everybody can look forward to our Alpha 2 launching in this quarter, that oftentimes Murphy's Law does come into effect in game development or software.
You guys know what Murphy's Law is? Okay, I'll clarify that for those who don't know. Like, I understand it's like logic, but I'd rather find proper definition. Oh yeah, it's pretty simple. Like, basically anything that can go wrong will go wrong. If there is a possibility of several things going wrong, the one that will cause the most damage will be the one to go wrong. Yeah. So this comment from Steven H. like milk. Yeah, exactly. And you see, he knew that 2.5 years ago. They were very careful with the announcing Alpha 2 date. And they still became a victim of a planning bias, of a planning fallacy. Because you always need to predict something that you cannot predict, which is unforeseen circumstances. And you always need to take them into account, even though you don't know which exactly circumstances you will face. Murphy's Law is the opposite of karma. I mean, yeah, it exists. You think the phase 1 not under NDA was a good idea? It would theoretically, it would make sense to have phase 1 under NDA. I can see the reasons behind that, but practically it's close to impossible, because it's one thing when you deal with a few thousand people who paid a lot of money to participate in Alpha 1, right? And PI testing, like spot testing, you can control those people. You have a leverage over them, because if they spend like $1,000 and they lose the account, that's not going to be really pleasant, right? And it also filters out a lot of people who are not serious. But when it comes to Alpha 2, there is going to be like a 6-digit number of people. You can't control them. And one way or another, sooner or later, most likely sooner, someone will leak everything. So yeah. And if the game will deliver over time, it doesn't matter. Yeah, true, but still.
Development in that sense, and I don't want to disappoint. So in that sense, I've kind of made a commitment not to announce dates until we're very sure that we can hit them, or at least closely hit them. So I would say look forward to when we do announce Alpha 2. We'll obviously, there's going to be testing that leads up to it. There's going to be, some press announcements. You'll start seeing a ramp up of development updates incorporating Alpha 2 footage. That'll give you clear indicators that we're getting ready to announce a date.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank Steven Sharif for taking the time to chat with us. Hop into the comments and let us know if any of the design decisions grabbed you, or if there's something you wish Ashes of Creation did different.